Good evening, Winchester, and welcome to the August 21st, 2018 Master Plan Steering Committee. We are here between 7 and 9 this evening, and after that we will be continuing with a short planning board meeting, after which we will go into executive session, talk about personnel review. But let's start off. We are going to be going over some publicity materials for the master plan, and then we're going to talk about our proposed schedule with our new consultant who we will be meeting in person
September 6th.
September 6th.
It's a very odd date. It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
You know I won't be here.
Yeah.
Good.
And yeah, it's not ideal really for anybody, but we had it.
Normally,
It's the way the stars aligned.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have much to say, so I will turn it over to Brian, who usually introduces.
Sure. So we are kind of past the point of anything related to any issues to the contract. The lawyer, everyone seems to be just fine. We're just kind of nailing down the project schedule in terms of the consultant, and then yes, Jennifer Goldstein is her name, and she and her team will be here on the 6th to introduce the project to the planning board, meaning that it's not required, meaning it's not necessarily a master plan steering committee meeting. It's to introduce it to the planning board, but obviously we very much encourage at least the 3 members that are here to come. So that's pretty much it with the consultant. There's really nothing else to say about that, and we're going to shift back now and go to, this is our work, finishing the work. This is now in our hands, so we can edit this trifold. So it's really, we can do anything we want very easily, rather than having this go back and forth in terms of the editing. So so this was obviously initial results that were done from the survey. Our consultant, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, will be analyzing the entirety of the survey results in October. It's right now scheduled for October, but so that's going to be part of this, to say that this is really just initial, and that a full review will happen later. So now it's just looking for preferences in terms of how this data is presented as people kind of come back from summer, and we can start kind of a buzz about the master plan in town. So I had envisioned either going around any page by page. I mean, there's only a few, so this is really, it does condense down to a trifold. It's just front or 3 fronts and backs of an 8.5 by 11. But like I said, so this is now, I believe, in PowerPoint. So I can, whereas before it was in InDesign, which we don't have that. Anyway, we can edit it, so here we go.
So does this take into account all the markups that we did last time?
So yeah, so I compiled all the comments and all even scanned pages, and sent it to them. So, and they sent an email back with nearly, I mean, they're not going to, it was hard to gauge. There were some that were a little bit more open in terms of what we wanted, but everything that was targeted, went. So I think this is kind of a final version from them, and I can't imagine this will go more, past this meeting. So I would hope that we would just finish it this evening.
So I have a couple typos I've marked, and should I just give them to you?
If it's typos and stuff, that's pretty easy. We also, I think, to be efficient, yes, that would, if you want to mark it up and give it to me,
yeah, that's probably the easiest way.
That's pretty easy. You obviously don't need to do it right here at the table.
Exactly, because basically that's the sort of thing that's not content.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I sent these out not thinking that people were going to mark them up, more that they have it, and then here. But so the biggest thing, no one understood these word clouds, so they put in as what you had to say. People didn't even understand at first what that's. It's still obviously a little, what is this? But that was what we told them to do.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Let's see. We already had a comment today about Winchester is not preparing to develop a master plan, as Winchester is preparing a master plan, right? Because we're in that process now. And these, many people wanted to know we had one of these numbers but didn't have the percentages of how many people in that precinct actually voted or took the survey. So all of those little pieces of data, I'm not going to remember exactly what was told, but I did go through it at the time. A lot of very small language changes that they did. And I believe everything got changed to traffic management. I think it was a little more too wordy otherwise, because it really wasn't necessarily speed or traffic or circulation. There were still some comments. I mean, we've got obviously gone through this many times, but there were still some comments on maybe some are missing here. From this portion of the cultural resources.
Stuff that we asked them to do, which they didn't do.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah,
So for
that's
instance,
quite right.
I'm looking at my notes from our last meeting,
Okay.
and for instance, they did not uniformly use the word question or
Yeah, I just caught
question.
that. I was just putting under town assets.
So-
yeah.
They didn't include links to the website.
Are they going to do that when things are final, when it's finalized?
No. So these are all the things that it's now ours.
That you can do.
I can
Okay,
do these
perfect.
things
All
now.
right,
So
all right, I'm just,
just
well,
checking.
we don't have renters versus homeowners.
Right, block.
So, I mean, in terms of the data that so we would have to, I don't think we can really ask them to do any more data-driven questions.
Well, I thought that all the comments we gave them included these questions. So I assumed that their last take at this would actually include those pieces of data, but they didn't.
This was
Okay.
a really robust discussion at the last meeting.
Yeah.
We had a lot of feedback on it, and it doesn't feel like a very dramatic change to the pamphlet. I think that's the silence.
Yeah, I mean,
If I had
we
went back
wanted
and
to
forth to
add,
compare them, I know.
we wanted to add the demographics of the town next to the demographics of the survey, so we could understand how reflective of the town it was. Add a contact info on the back with link to full report.
Is there a contract done? Is that part of the issue?
We haven't, no, they have not billed us. The contract is not done.
Well, in this,
There were a lot of questions about how the data was derived. So
Mhm.
did their email to you explain
Yeah,
some
so
of?
I'm gonna see exactly what I sent them
Okay.
and exactly what they,
Instead of, because I'm seeing a lot of it wasn't picked up, and I know that you have it in your notes.
yeah, no.
Instead of doing it now, can we have you guys work on it outside and then come back
Yeah,
at the next
that's
meeting with
probably
it?
I think I can do nearly everything,
Yeah.
period, no matter what is being done.
Right.
It's a question of how much time is really left on the contract, I guess. I can't imagine there's much left.
To be honest, I think we should just do this. I mean,
Well, that's why I was like,
I mean, there's not that
when they
much.
were basically saying, okay, I think we're nearly there, whatever. I was like, well, there still are several things that I'm sure we're gonna wanna do, can I change this, and can I change anything, and that's when they sent this.
It could have been, they had our notes when they made their final adjustments.
Yeah, I wanna find out how much of
And that's
what
what-
happened at the meeting,
Yeah.
not necessarily this very second,
But we had the questionnaire opened, comparing it to how the trifold came out, or however many pages it ends up being, and so that was all sort of digested, and this is the translation, and.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that would.
Seems like some of the really broad strokes were overlooked, like the question consistency and that stuff, so that's the concern, that's.
Well, I want to make sure that got transmitted. If that didn't get transmitted to them,
Right,
That's,
right.
that's
That's a different
where the
issue.
issue might.
Yeah, so,
yeah.
Well, we can work that out.
Yeah, I like Heather Von Meering's concept. Let's just turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got notes and,
Yeah.
I know Brian and I had a very deep discussion where I relayed all of our,
Yeah,
We had it all there.
and we had it all there, so, let's figure out
I'm happy to
whether,
trust.
which side the communication wasn't good on, and we'll just have to move on and do it ourselves.
I figured it was going to need one more run with me. That was what I envisioned coming in here, no matter what, that it wouldn't need any more decisions. The decisions really have been made. So I can't imagine there's any more work to be done about this from the committee.
so I'll give you
Yeah.
some, just
Yeah.
The only
edits, they're not content driven.
The only questions that would have, I think, gone back to MAPC is that some of them we were having trouble figuring out how they created the rank order. Those were the only pieces that were really data-driven, is we were trying to figure out, so there's a couple of things, infrastructure 1, 2, 3, 4, I think that came from 2 different questionnaire questions. And that, I'm throwing it out as an example, it's something that was ranked, and we were trying to figure out how off of 2 separate sets of questions they came up with a 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be the only thing that I think would come maybe more easily from them than from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we had a similar question for town assets
Right, right, those were the sorts of things.
and housing.
You were trying to.
I
define
have
that.
lots of cut and pastes. How were the choices ranked?
Other
Are
than
they
that-
statistically significantly different? Why did you cut these off? Heather, I think you were pulling out actual numbers. from-
Yeah, yep.
So, okay, so I
So
guess,
as
Yeah.
long as we know you have all of, everything that was aired before, we do not.
yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That-
We'll,
yeah.
we'll
This
we'll
is-
figure out why this is not as complete as
I
we
thought, I
hope.
thought that too. Yeah.
Because
This
it
is-
I thought
really,
you said
really isn't.
20%
Yeah, when you look at housing,
No?
the 1, 2,
Right. One
What-
suggestion I would just ask if you consider is the sequence of these subsections. And I would actually, after the demographics, I would place town assets and cultural resources in that second and third. And then I would get into infrastructure, public transportation,
Well,
historic resources.
Originally, infrastructure was at the end, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what the way I'm thinking about it is
Yeah.
flow. You know, what do you consider important? What do you use? So that's kind of almost background information.
Oh, you know what?
And then, then infrastructure, what additions and improvements are most needed? What public transportation would you like?
I think it's just out of order.
I think it's out of order.
It was that way.
Yeah, it was that.
Well, I think it was that way.
No, the reason why is because it's a trifold, so
Right.
these are.
Let's
these-
not go over
Yeah.
old
Yeah, we
stuff.
will-
The order
That's
is
a
how it
waste
was,
of this
there was no change in
group's
the order.
time.
It's
No,
just
I know that.
Yeah, it's because it's how it's folded and printed, it's
I
different.
had the same reaction last time. I would say, if you could change the order, I think it would make a more logical flow.
I'll tell you what, Brian and I will work on this, and we will probably not get back to y'all until, I should say yous, because I'm in New England, y'all is down south, until September, just because I'm out of town next week. And so probably
That's fine.
mid-September is when we're gonna get when we'll finish this off.
something was wonky with the housing, if I remember correctly, because the way that it's questioned, and then they're just 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of these were below 50%.
Yeah, there was.
And
Yeah.
that was misleading in this.
Yeah, we've got that somewhere, I think.
So the thing they made, the change that they made specifically for that, they added in-law apartments to the housing list, and then using our new metric, this actually came out ahead of the independent senior housing.
It's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Which type of housing? Just
Yeah, so
Winchester
Different
need more
question,
of?
different question.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
I just wanted you to be
we'll-
very careful with
yeah.
that, because that,
So if you have any, if
Misleading.
you look
Yeah.
at it this time and you have some new concerns, just send them to Brian and,
Is anybody else? I'm gonna not throw this at my colleagues here.
but, I mean, the key thing is we
Anybody else
now
have
live in
anything?
Winchester, not Worcester.
That was a big one that we
That
had
was
to
a big
change.
one.
Then the font is wrong, so.
Okay. So our next,
I have three, Sean, Sabir, Maureen, and Heather. Anybody else?
Heather
Comment
H.
Before I.
okay, I'm sorry, this is your meeting. You get to go on.
So this is one of the probably the only element of the contract that we're gonna talk about. It's just this one page. So that, Jan Goldson originally, the way that they do the survey, that they would normally be conducting a survey at that, in October. But since we already have the survey, this is really a question of whether, I don't know why we can't move this up earlier. So.
Were there concerns about the holiday timing expressed? Is that what moved it to January, or is it just her timetable?
No, it's still, it says in October, it says analyze results of the prior MPC community survey. That's usually the time where she's doing the survey.
Maybe they just want to get up to speed on background for the town
okay,
first,
fancy
because that is what.
Yeah, I just would want to push it as early, as early as possible, because they can be doing that at any time, like, they don't need, I just would want to push it as early as possible if it's.
Agree.
I would put it in the September, October,
Yes.
so that,
Yeah.
why not?
They have it now. They can do it without anyone else.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's
We're
like
not
they don't even
impacting
need
it.
to talk to me. It's data. So that's one, so that was kind of my only suggestion in terms of changing the project schedule, because this seems extremely reasonable.
So, some of us remember there are a lot of documents and surveys and everything going around from what time's gone by. At some point, should we see what you've got that you're turning over and just see if any of us have other materials we think might be helpful?
I think we should create a list
Like all the background materials.
of all the different surveys that are going on and those results.
No,
And-
part of the master plan, without a doubt, all of those documents and data, like, there's going to be a very large data dump to JM Goals, and, yes, that will certainly be on the list, but,
No, I'm just
what
wondering
we're
if
talking
you were
about.
to circulate to us, some
Sure.
of us, and
But-
I'll speak for myself, I might see that, I've kept major documents, so we all know about Triangle Area Master Plan. Some of the old ones still are useful to see.
We're quoting the Triangle Master Plan.
Okay.
I did it this morning.
Right, well, and
He's
as
saying,
you
can
know,
you share a list of everything
Yeah.
you're gonna
I
get?
can, so that definitely
generate a
is in
list
the
of
master
everything
plan.
that they
That-
get
yeah.
to read. And, they don't necessarily need to read the master plan from 1953, but there might be some documents since, 2000 that might
Well, we should,
be illuminating.
Yeah, no, I can easily send that
Just a
list
list.
around.
Let's add to it.
We had a study done by VHB.
Yeah.
Lance was on, I remember, and it basically, we got a presentation and it just stopped there. And it's not to blame anybody, it just never was pursued after that. And, yeah, so they're just these various studies, sometimes that didn't have any place to go because we weren't in a place to move them
Yeah,
on
no,
to give
they're-
them to somebody else.
all on on a shelf, literally
Oh, good.
in my desk. So it's just writing them down.
Okay.
Not on my desk, by the way, in a bookshelf.
right, one option, and we've done it with some of the documents, is to put them online.
I would say probably 60% of the documents are online right now.
And they're on the master plan website.
On the planning board or the planning department, but maybe not.
Right, because we
We did put the triangle master plan, and we did put.
Can we go to that?
Yeah.
Sure, and we should update it because it still talks about a survey to be taken. I would expect that all of the documents the historical documents will get scanned and put up there, just so that.
The community needs survey, the fields master plan, all that should be put up.
Yeah,
Where MAPC's housing production plan currently sits should be up.
Yeah, the links went to that, and then you couldn't
So there's,
So this is the '09 master plan phase 1,
and then down.
the
the-
triangle master plan, and the triangle master plan.
Yeah,
So
we-
that's it. So it's missing, so that's not, certainly not 60% there, but on the planning board website and planning department, I believe there are others. But I can put every single one, we have them all digitally. It's not hard.
Yeah, let's
But
just,
we never decided to put it all on the master. So you want to put basically every study, I would say that's done to completion, not necessarily
Right.
even,
Yeah.
that could inform, that's a different
Different
list
animal.
Yeah.
to give to Jen.
But the school's master plan is important,
Definitely.
stuff like that. You
Yeah,
think of more,
so-
the historical commission has their
we
master
could,
plan.
yeah, we could probably come up with a different way of presenting this because that's really hard for me to read.
I agree.
And then we could also, so we'll have a separate page
just
which
be
just
titles.
talks about master plan documents. We'll have links to the other parts of this website so we don't have to duplicate. So why don't we?
It'll be a great resource for us also to have them all in
Yeah,
one spot.
yeah.
So
Where the heck is my
the
header?
senior who's working with me will be able to update this website once a week.
Okay.
Okay,
So that's
so
the goal.
What day is that of the week, just so,
He doesn't have
a set
a
day?
set day yet. He starts back up in a couple weeks.
oh, I'd like to meet him,
Yeah.
sure.
We should have a whole other section though, because that says 2009. We should have something else that says like reference documents and then lists
Well,
all the
yeah.
other stuff.
Yes,
Acronym.
good
Well,
point.
Yeah.
Prime space that needs to be swapped out.
yeah, well, I think what we'll do is we'll have a completely separate page for documents, for reference documents.
right,
And that will
exactly.
include this, we'll just move this off of there
Uh-huh.
because it's kind of weird.
I agree.
Right.
Well, it also looks like other portions of the the Winchester website has been updated with, it just looks a little different. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So that would be part of the windshield tour and the focus groups and interviews. It's all part of that because the interviews and the group meeting and the stuff is all gonna be, they're gonna be referencing all the documents anyways and those. So they need to review those before they sit down.
And so what's the preparation for those focus groups? Maybe 3 meetings ago, our names were put in different buckets?
correct.
Presume those are the focus groups?
So they have multiple different types of focus groups. So you are one of the, I think collectively, I think you are one of the groups. So I think they're also going to talk to other boards and commissions. That is my hope. They didn't specifically write that, but yeah,
I have to go back to my notes, but Zeke and I, for example, were like something that related to open space or something.
Yeah.
And you would
Those-
review that part of the plan.
Yeah, those would be where, when we get to
That's
writing
later on
those
the
parts.
process.
Yeah, I think that's more, when we're actually writing, because I think instead they'd be, for instance, if you were talking about transportation, they would probably want to talk to DPW, engineering, and myself.
Yeah.
And then,
But
yeah.
It's also something, the people in those groups would just keep an eye out on the process to make sure that their constituents, their stakeholders are represented.
With the change in town manager,
Mhm.
with town leadership, it might be just worth them to make sure that they get Richard before he leaves office and then also meet with the new town manager.
Yeah,
There, so
So
there's,
make sure that the
bridge the
transition is
gap
in place.
and
Mhm.
that component of the plan for the town is, but we need to make sure that they come into Richard prior to his departure.
It should, I mean, there's no doubt they wouldn't talk to him at least during this stakeholder interview section.
Yep,
So,
just make sure they're
yeah.
aware of it and.
well, I think it's more of it's more of,
Yeah, I think.
getting the new manager in. I think that might be more difficult prior to her
No,
start
it
date.
won't be prior, it's just making sure that they are aware that this is going on and that the current town manager and the new town manager are two different people. And they have different goals and see things differently. So I don't know how they want to deal with that or if they even need to deal with that, but it's just something to
Well, I
make
think-
sure
mean-
that.
Well, I think when
Yeah,
it comes
I
to the master plan, ultimately it comes right down to the planning board et al. here.
yeah.
You know, in order,
She's
you know, in order to, I mean, that's part of our legal responsibility to deal with. So, but when you come back into actual implementation, that's when you really need to be able to draw in the town manager and other staff. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think the current town manager will help with is I mean, they're working on the existing conditions all the way up through November, so he's definitely knowledgeable about that. So I think it's discussing things with him works all the way up until November, and then the next part of next year is when the new town manager will,
November 1st.
November
right, but I
1st.
mean, in
That's,
terms
so
of,
November, they're writing the existing conditions and going through the drafts.
yeah,
So that will be reviewed by the current town manager.
No, we reviewed as a new town.
It
Yep.
says mid-November.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So they're in the
but-
middle. He'll see a draft for sure. I think there will be a draft before the draft.
It's all management, time management on part
Well-
of Goldston. So that's all, I
Right.
just want to make sure that
So-
note is there to them, so they're aware of it and they can time manage themselves
So,
as needed.
to write down this concern, it's that the.
It's not even a concern, it's just letting them know that this is going on and to manage their time.
You did raise a good point, namely that by the time the existing conditions report is being written, the current town manager won't be in office, therefore won't be able to review it.
That's right.
So maybe letting them know that so they could get a
perspective,
pre-draft
yeah.
to him,
Edit, yeah.
so that he can make sure that they've
At least
accurately,
he's getting the major.
so,
Ryan,
Yes.
I have two questions, which just expanded to three. Apologize, sir. Both in phase one and in phase three, there's a sentence, which is what you just told me, conduct at least 7 focus group meetings and/or stakeholder interviews for all master plan elements. Is there a difference between the meetings that would be conducted in phase one and the meetings, the exact same meetings that would be conducted in phase three? Are those, because the wording is exactly the same.
They're different. The first one says clarify opportunities, constraints, and issues, and the next one is later, so it says evaluate strategy choices. It's a different
But
task.
is it the same groups? Could there be different groups?
Oh, I see.
Are they just different venues, like?
Oh, well, no,
five
I mean,
schools
clearly
within-
the objectives are different,
Oh,
the
okay.
stage is different. But, the first part of that sentence is the same. A series of focus groups and/or stakeholder interviews for all master plan elements.
Yeah,
Am I-
I don't know what she was thinking, meaning whether it was the same
Well,
exact
my
groups.
second question
Yeah.
is, which is my original first question, is 7 enough? Because my recollection is that there are like 9 elements in the master plan, 9 or 10?
I'm reading this as they're gonna make sure that this information is disseminated over 7 meetings.
They have 7,
right?
yeah.
So 7
It's times,
locations or groups that,
correct.
and then they revisit everybody in phase 3 to make sure
And-
they hear the plan.
Typically, at least in other communities I'm familiar with, it's 1 or 2 chapters per meeting.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, is it
Okay,
done
so-
that
Because
way?
there's a lot-
Or- I mean, there's a different way to do this. One might be to take, for example, 4 of the meetings and use those in inviting 2 of the town meeting precincts per meeting. So you might do some of it with town meeting precincts and some of it with town boards.
I think they're
I
gonna
thought
be
we
as,
talked about
they're
that.
gonna be as, I would imagine, they will be as flexible as they can be to do what
Right.
we want. What they're committing is a schedule and time.
That's what I,
You know,
I
so-
totally
Yeah.
understand. I just didn't
Last
want to get
meeting-
off on an assumption that this is all about 7 meetings with 8 topics in master plan. I just think there are different ways to do focus groups.
We talked
I-
about
I-
precincts
Well,
and
and
topics.
the question is, how
Got
many
it.
focus groups, which could have a broader agenda, and then how many stakeholder meetings, which presumably would have a narrower agenda?
well,
Personally, I don't know the difference between either.
But
yeah.
1 PowerPoint 7 times or 7 PowerPoints. difference. I mean, it's
Well-
basically the difference, right?
Well, we know there's going
Yeah, I
to be.
mean, quality, you're not gonna know that from this.
I think, yeah, these are important questions that I don't know that we can actually answer until we have the consultant in front of us,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they can
Yeah.
explain it, so
Well,
we'll, yeah.
I would
mean,
imagine they're gonna do what we want, though. I mean,
That's right.
Well,
And
what
the
I
key,
suggest is you need 14.
They will probably say, you know, very politely, or not at all, that, yeah, give us more money. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying. What they're doing here is committing a very specific number of hours that they will be, that's what they're doing here.
Exactly,
So
that's their, it's
I
their
wouldn't
time
get hung up on how,
Yeah.
especially if we're like, we would like you to do
X
whatever, you know, that we figured that, the reason why, we should talk about this for a second, is because there are so many studies that have been done
Right.
in the past. Like, do we need a ton of existing conditions work? No, so although it's existing conditions work, they can kind of, I have a feeling that there's again, a large data dump here that we don't want to be, for them to regurgitate what the housing production plan is done, or the community needs assessment, or, I mean, that have just been done. These were very well thought out surveys, that people took a lot of time to do it. There's a lot of good information there. And we have all this is the community of Winchester. We don't need them to write to us, this is what, you know, the intro to Winchester, for example, because we just had it. So,
But
And
they
we
need
did-
the time to digest all of that.
yeah.
We
They
do also
do.
talk about how
They do,
co-urbanize
but
is
that's
part of that
different.
outreach, though. I mean, that's a tool that people can access from home to pour over some of what they're doing, right? That's the point of it?
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's interacting, I mean, you are, oh,
Oh, hello.
sorry.
It's the bat phone. I mean, it was sort of sold to
think we've
us
got
as
anybody
like,
calling in.
planning committee Facebook. Like, this is what we're working on, here's how it's.
A lot of communities do it. People that are savvy on their phone, those types of communities, they use this. People that don't use, you know, mobile phones all the time are going to hate this and say, I don't have a smartphone, or I don't want to live my life on a phone. So you're going to, I mean, that's honestly, the only bad part about it. However,
We have a number of community meetings. I think we have sufficient different types of input.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what is your concern?
Exactly, and that's the point.
What was your
Yeah.
concern, I guess?
Me? Oh, no, I didn't have a concern. I'm saying, I thought when we talked about the number of focus groups that would happen, we ultimately rolled that into the fact that co-urbanize would sort of manage the need for more focus groups, because it would be able to get the word out to individuals as opposed to making sure everyone's in a room.
But,
Yeah,
and what I'm getting at is, should David expect that they will come and meet with the Conservation Commission?
I would,
I can't answer that.
Hmm?
I can't, maybe,
why don't, I mean.
we
that-
could,
You know, clearly
I mean,
that's-
I would imagine, I mean, a large part of it is the open space and recreation. I mean, I don't,
So,
I would hope that.
I don't know why she wouldn't, but I'm certainly, I mean, she would have to talk to the conservation agent, Elaine Freeland, and I'm sure she would, you know, at the very least, she would be probably, not probably, she would definitely be involved with the interviews.
I think a lot of these questions can be answered in the actual project kickoff
I
meeting.
do too.
The real goal is to make sure that the time frame and that.
Just to
it's
keep the
allotted and
contract
that it's
moving.
there.
Right.
I think, you know, with, as pointed out, like with the online opportunity, with co-urbanize, the focus groups in the different phases, I think they actually are different focus groups, but we can't actually put words in the consultant's mouth, but I think they actually are, because one is trying to get all the facts of where we currently are and where we were in the past, and then a different group would be looking at where we want to go. So that may be more residents outreach than town employees, and gathering a lot of that. So needless to say, we don't need the answer right now. We
Right.
need it at the kickoff meeting, and so those are great questions to bring to the kickoff meeting. But in terms of the contract, I feel that this is actually very well thought out, and I'm fine with proceeding with it. And I look forward to getting the answers to a lot of these questions in person with them.
Yeah, that
I think it's also a very fair timeline.
Your comment leads to my third question. I think, I mean, I like the 4 phases, and I think the time frame for phases 1, 2, 3 is fine. The concern I have is whether 2 months for phase 4 is sufficient. And, when you includes the preparation of a complete draft, that strikes me as being ambitious.
I see the previous phases, though, more as the outline with the content, but then the final phase is actually putting it into
A presentation.
a
format.
presentation in written form, in not just bullet points. It's turning them into
They're
sentences.
turning it into a report.
No, and my cynical reaction, having done this for 35 years as a consultant, you never do that in 2 months.
It's a fair point. We don't do too many things in 2 months.
That's very true.
Well, but we don't also start from
It's
scratch.
also,
But-
it's also us, by the way, that it's here.
It's not starting from scratch.
But to
though.
Heather's
It's
point,
not-
they're
it's-
writing
it-
the entire time.
But
They're
To
writing
Heather's
the entire
point, they're
time.
working the entire time and drafting.
Yeah, I mean,
Sections.
when I looked at the time schedule, when I looked at the proposal, I liked 4 phases. And when I looked at the time schedule, and thought about it a little bit more, the one question I asked is whether 2 months for phase 4 is enough.
I mean, so basically then what you would do, to do this then what you're talking about is instead of August to December for phase 3, which is, I mean, August doesn't really count, right? So it's September through August, September through December.
Mhm.
So then you would have to shorten that because end of December's also a wash. So
I don't think you could.
What would you do?
I don't think you should shorten.
Well, then,
phases
then how do you get past, then how do you get past?
Lengthen the overall schedule.
Well, why don't we, since this is 18 months out, or 16 months out, which would be January of 2020, I think as we go along, we see where they're at, and if it looks like they need more time, then we'll look at lengthening the
Right,
contract.
what's,
I mean, it's a concern, but it's nothing we can do about it right now.
right.
I think that we should be mindful of the phasing and make sure that it really is on time. And if there are parts that we can accelerate, then we should go ahead and do that. I think people had pointed out the last time, we want to make sure that any of the public interaction is being done during times when the public is in town.
Exactly.
And that may be, if it turns out we have to reschedule things because of that, maybe they can use the downtime to work on parts of the report that they've already completed the
Exactly, because
analysis
you could
for.
proceed to
So
writing.
I see this as being a very dynamic,
Oh, it will be, absolutely guaranteed.
so I think
It's
it's,
16,
yeah, so
Tom, I don't
end of,
think,
end of February.
community, we should be
I think
overly optimistic.
I think your skepticism is well put. I don't know if it's warranted yet, but certainly, because we will find out how warranted it is, but certainly walking into it with our eyes open as to making sure this thing runs on schedule so that's a really valuable input. I have it written down here. Is 2 months for phase 4 sufficient? I'll even put a question
Can
mark
I-
after
Well,
that.
I would
Well,
hate
I
to
would-
plan to spend more time, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always,
Well, we will try to make it as efficient as possible. I
Yeah,
mean, that's all we can do.
because I think once you've gone
It's
through,
extended, yeah.
I think once you've gone through the first phases, first 3, at that point, then you should have, I don't know, if people are working on it with the sense that they're people start writing things in their heads, and we should be mindful of that. So that if we can make sure that those thoughts carry through, I think that timing is probably pretty good, actually, as long as people are mindful of it and we're keeping good enough records so that we can see what the flow is.
There's no doubt that 2 months is sufficient
Right.
to draft the technical report. But it's like the trifold, it's gonna go through 3 drafts, 4 drafts, not 1.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't be the first contract extension that ever happened in town. There's 50 days, but I just don't see why, I think the point is, I think this is a reasonable timeframe, period.
yeah. I have a
And that
question.
if we want to do anything, we don't need anyone else to do it by that point, we can do it.
Right, which happened
Right.
once before. Just a different point, and I'm not sure I'll just raise it, but with the phase 4 plan finalization, Again, back to MGL, the master plan does include a map, a town map, isn't that the phrase? And I don't see the word map. It says land use plan. I would read that as map, but should it say that, just because that's
Okay.
what we expect?
I mean, I see land use plan as a map, but then maybe I'm just reading
Right,
plan
and
in a
actually,
different language.
I've
Two
been a
different
party to
things.
planning where we never actually got down to the finer points of the map, and that's when you really have
Yeah,
to deal
that's
with
where the rubber really meets the
Maureen,
road.
to your point, that gets into deliverables. Do they have something in the contract that outlines all of the deliverables, like, or meeting notes, presentations, report X pages? PowerPoints,
There's,
Land use plan, like when I write up scopes.
I don't
for
think there, yeah, I don't think there's a
contracts,
separate,
have that.
I'll look, I'll look.
And the
That's not-
target
that's not
length
just
would
to be
be
thinking about,
actually
yeah.
not a bad thing. That can be, I won't be here on that meeting when you have your kickoff, but I would be thinking about how long you want it. If there was one major, objection or hiccup or something with the last phase one master plan one, it was actually too long. And a lot of what made it long was boilerplate. And so as a result, our chairman at the time, Lance, did rewrite it to
Right.
just condense it. And the theory being, you can't go on for, if it's
Exactly.
too long, it's not useful.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it helps-
Then the subcommittees actually ended up doing most of the writing,
Right.
so.
Well,
It helps to have those expectations up front. Like when I
Agreed.
write up all
Right.
my contracts, if I write that it's gonna be 10 to 20 pages, that's
Exactly.
very different than putting at the beginning, my report's gonna be 50 to 75 pages. You just know
Yep.
yeah.
what you're gonna end up
Well,
with.
I'm pretty sure that language was not in I don't know what's in the contract. I haven't seen the contract, but certainly the RFC, there wasn't a,
Well, that, maybe
but
at least discuss it. when
we will
we
certainly,
meet.
that,
And go on the record as
Yeah.
we
List
would
of
prefer a
deliverables is
plan
something
that's
we'll-
more like, I don't know, what was one? Does you might remember, Brian, about how long it was, but that seemed like a pretty good length, so you
I
might,
mean, I would assume the master plan will be
How long,
around
what?
40 to 50
yeah,
pages.
that's what, that would be my guess.
And I
That
think
sounds
that,
about right.
But the first,
We had a
the one
pamphlet,
we,
though, we all wanted the
'Cause
pamphlet,
I know
like
I was chairing the housing
Cheat sheet.
section, and that was about.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know how else to express it, but it really was a cheat sheet with the categories of the areas and like the
The one that
bullet
we had
points.
was Swampscott. That was the one, that was the one that actually, it was the one
That
that
one was-
Cynthia
was-
Wall passed out.
Yeah,
They had the report, but then they also had like a
It
cheat
was like a
sheet.
placemat,
Yeah,
really, is
right,
what it
right.
was.
And that would be the deliverables, but it's worth having a conversation just to say, what are we just don't want to show up with this book and, because no one in town meeting it's gonna.
No,
go.
I think that is actually probably, it's a very large discussion in terms of what we're actually presenting. There are some communities, it's an online experience. It's not a thing it's not a book. Like, they don't even have a paper copy of it, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
we're gonna have a
I think
paper.
Like,
that's-
I mean,
no, I think
we
that's
can,
critical,
there's a
yeah.
lot, I mean,
We
that's a
can-
large discussion.
but anyway, I want to
That's why
make
we
sure
should do
you got
deliverables
map.
now.
Yeah,
If
no,
mapping
totally.
is-
So I've got need map and a list of deliverables, and Heather, your experience would be really useful, that Heather, not that Heather, to,
Both.
yes, but this Heather brought it up. Well, hopefully you'll be at the meeting in September 6th, which I think is where we can first bring this up,
I think,
so.
I think the idea of compiling all questions and giving it to her beforehand,
We could do-
if possible,
Yes.
if possible.
Yeah, there's,
Include in their presentation.
So-
No, everyone can put it in, I put it in one page, I give it to her a week or two before which is
Perfect,
coming
right.
up.
I don't think there is a week or two.
Yeah, so, no, 14 days,
okay,
no,
so
15 days.
So here's an action item
That's a good
for
action
everyone at the table is if you
We've
want
been taking
things.
notes though as well.
We have been taking notes, but if you come up with ideas that you'd like to see, deliverables, questions about schedule, anything like that, that we try to get to Brian by,
I'll send the email tomorrow about this.
Okay, good.
by the middle of next week. Because we're meeting with the consultant on the
Week, that's good.
6th.
Yeah, that's week.
So get it to Brian by Wednesday of next week, which would
Is
be,
there any chance that meeting's gonna be taped on the 6th?
We can ask
Let's
Kim to
make
do
sure-
that.
yeah, let's make sure that it's taped. So that would be, get your stuff to Brian by the 29th of August.
Will you
Yeah.
send a reminder?
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
yeah, no, that's, right, I didn't
I
finish my
had one
note.
last question. Is the 5-year implementation plan, they're doing it for 5 years, is that correct? We want it, everything to, all the implementation of all the visions and goals and how to get there is a 5-year plan, is that correct?
It's typical.
That's typical. But then you don't redo it for another 10. Is typical.
Yeah, I think,
I think.
I mean, I think it's the, I guess, level of detail, but generally, I mean, yeah, it obviously takes time to plan out 5 years of implementation work. How long did they actually give themselves? for
Just
that?
like, because I was like, the historical stuff that they had in the last master plan took 7 years to like work through. We tend to run on a slower schedule in Winchester.
Oh, actually,
No, we're on a
fast, that was
deliberate,
effective.
we run on a deliberative schedule.
No, but actually, what you're describing, that was actually realized, a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's true. It was realized, but it did take 7 years to realize it, of what was recommended in the master plan. So it's just a question of, to make sure that whatever is, the recommendations are, is that they're realistic. The worst thing would be to end up,
I have a question.
it's
on
not
the,
realistic to meet, do.
You can type, just cut this off anytime you're ready, but if we're still looking at what's going on here. Should it be said somewhere that we would like photography, like photographs? That sometimes at the end, comes at the end, and then you're struggling to decorate the document, and the images can be useful. Anyway, just
Sure.
throw that out.
Or we can just
It
go
doesn't
to-
I would,
say
I would,
anywhere.
We can go to
imagine to do their
Shutterstock
work,
and get
they would have to be
random
honest.
Victorian.
Well, you
But
imagine
yeah,
a lot of things,
yeah.
but I mean, at some
Yeah.
point, you want to
It
be able
could
to
be
have
helpful,
literally-
you know, because certain neighbors have, certain neighborhoods, for
That-
example, have certain characters.
Yeah,
characteristics,
and actually,
you
as
know.
I think back on
And
it,
some-
I
and some-
think
and
the
sometimes-
board pretty much
sometimes a
supplied
visual
the
is the
ones
best
that
way
we
to
get
wanted
it there.
one. So if
One-
we want photographs, maybe we should
One
be
way
saying-
of getting community input is just say, hey, would you like to get a photograph in the town master plan?
But the point is, if they're roaming around town, which I hope they do, I hope they're actually on the ground looking around, that maybe we can remind them, we want them to illustrate the document.
You know, it's like how
in
timely, I
September.
was out walking my dog just before dinner tonight.
Yeah, I think-
And I'm walking down Fells Road, right? And because it is so
I think photographs
green
are
up
important.
there,
Yeah.
and it's going
I
right
can't
into the
imagine they
Fells,
would do
that sort of
that without
defines that.
actual-
We'll
area.
just
Just as
remind
a
them.
first-
Because how do you remember?
It doesn't hurt to say,
Sure.
give us pretty photos. And then we could run a contest for the town and say, the best photo goes on the
Well,
front.
I did that Instagram when I was campaigning for reelection, and I did a whole series on Cape houses, for example. Yes, thank you. A few people were
Number one
actually,
fan, Maureen.
I love you. And then I
like
did two
Cape
families, and I did this large series on two-family houses. So those series can be, and then they can be used by this board also, going down the road.
Well,
So,
I think a lot of the material which doesn't
copy.
end up in the final document could actually be put on our
Right.
website in some other form, provided we can make the website do something modern.
Or you could, you know, put it in an appendix, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, I can imagine we'll have so much information that it won't work on paper, so we'll just, figure out some way of making it available.
You can figure it out.
Heather, you were going to say something at one point. I had a note
The
that,
photographs and illustrations can start under the windshield tour of Winchester. So
Okay.
that's, no, I think I'm
as long as they
I'm
don't take
interested
the
to hear what
photographs through the
the other
windshield.
Heather has to say about the length of the actual finalized report to make it actual, that people will actually read it. What's the actual fair?
That's different. That's it. I mean,
That's what the executive summary is.
yeah, I was like 6 pages.
Pages at the
We're
beginning.
hoping they get through the trifold.
Yes.
Right.
And, to be honest, something like that would work well in a web environment. So if there is a web document as well as a printed executive
Yes.
different
summary.
medium.
So in the question of deliverables, I mean, in some way, this entire sheet is deliverables, right? I think the real question is, what's the final deliverable?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
What would people be satisfied with as the last step, the thing that?
Yeah,
we
what can they
handle?
actually do, or maybe they farm that out. I mean, it could be anything, really. I mean, I think that's actually one of the big draws that Jan Goldson does, is that she assembles teams. Like, that's part of her. So,
Right, but you can always develop subcommittees as well.
I mean,
That works.
there's the final deliverables and the interim deliverables, which is sort of what you were saying.
They're all deliverables, yeah.
Yeah,
List
but there's a
all-
difference between that final product and all of the intermediate ones, which I think is fascinating. It's something that we need to collect as well. You mentioned meeting minutes and things like that. Because, in 50 years when we do this again, people want to know what
Well, I think we'll be doing it before 50 years.
I'm just
I
joking.
certainly hope so. considering where we were starting back in
Yeah.
2007 or so, and it hadn't been done since, what, 1953? So,
With the schedule, Springtown meeting 2020,
Hmm.
I don't know if we need them there or not. I wouldn't think so, but that we go for town meetings
I,
out of customary, like, town meeting votes, even though it's really the planning board who votes it in, town meeting still does a vote to accept it.
that's an interesting question. Can anyone remember what happened with 2009, 10?
oh, I know,
No,
I
it
know,
was
I know
ours.
it was,
It
I know
was
it was,
totally ours.
I know it was presented to the town meeting.
Yeah, but it was ours.
It was ours, because, and most of us
Right.
spent time, quite a bit of time
It was
doing the
acceptance.
writing
They
ourselves.
did do a vote to accept it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just, they
And I
were
think that's an, I think
sort of
that's,
like the beginning, the reports at the opening of town
Yeah.
meeting. It was a report. And
right, but I think that is so important, because otherwise, people, number one, people need to know what is being proposed in terms of the long-term future. People, I think, we have a responsibility to ensure that people are insured, because that will form the basis, make no mistake, that will form the basis of what the planning board will be working on going forward for the next 10 years or so. So it's a very important document.
Well, one thing to note is that the number of focus groups and meetings during this phase isn't limited to the ones that the consultant will have. So if by the time we get to the town meeting in spring of 2020, the town isn't completely sick of hearing about the master plan, then we haven't done our job. So there's no reason why we can't have independent meetings during this time as the board.
I bet you're absolutely right. And, you know, even when it is finished, I think it's important for us as, you know, as board members and so forth, to be able and make ourselves available for other groups and committees. If somebody wants to call and have a presentation, you know, that we ought to be able to be prepared to do that.
Have you started to think about what you're gonna say at the fall town meeting about the master plan?
it's November.
It's coming, right, it's coming out,
Like I
coming up,
said.
sooner-
Yeah, we'll
it's coming up
we'll
sooner
have-
than you think.
What do you want for
I
Christmas?
believe that we will be mentioning it,
Halloween
yes.
candies at the grocery store, I noticed.
I think between now and then, things will flesh out much more, so hopefully by November, we will have had all of this, you know, this beginning stuff done, and we'll actually have some substantive comments to make at fall town meeting. How's that? Is that a politically okay thing to
Yeah,
say?
no, I mean,
So,
I think it's
I want to,
worthwhile spending some time on as part of fall town meeting, and it
Yes,
Exactly.
what's
yes.
accomplished, or just what's gonna happen in the future.
Right.
Since we've asked the town to fund this at some large non-money, yes.
Amount of funds.
Thank
We have
you.
asked them to
Then
fund
we
it.
will definitely be providing an update to town meeting, so.
so since I won't be here for the kickoff or whatever it is, first,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to note that, and I don't, I mean, it's maybe fine, it's not in here anywhere, but just that with our trifold and our survey, it's pretty clear when you see the numbers and the things people were prioritizing. We reached a, what, I don't want to say middle age, but the middle something age-wise demographic. And we're not hearing from the 3 to 20-year-olds. That's, maybe that we want to, maybe we don't, but I am concerned that we recognize that there's a certain segment of the senior population we're really not hearing in a representative manner. So I just want to throw that out there, and we're going to need to do a different kind of outreach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's very important that it's basically, and it was honestly due to the the wonderful outreach through the school system. It was the 35 to 49-year-old.
And Facebook, I
Yeah.
think, I'm not.
And that's fine, but we need to be.
But
talking
still,
about
it's still the 35 to 49,
Right.
like,
No,
that's what we're
right,
getting.
yeah. The answer is yes, yes, yes.
Really, there's a
But-
lot of people that are older than 49 that live in
Right.
town, so
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
She's saying we just have to really.
We do have
make sure
to-
we reach
yeah.
them.
And it's gonna not I mean, I can't speak for the whole population. Many of them certainly are plugged in with a computer, some portion not, and probably it goes down from there. So we have a different approach. And she probably, I hope,
well, I mean, there are a lot of
has
events.
ideas, but we will too, because we know
Yeah,
how
I-
the Jenks Center works is the
Exactly.
best
I
example.
think that since this is a much larger effort, we will be able to do that. We
I
were
mean, I'm
really,
not- yeah,
yeah,
I'm
we
not
were kind
saying
of
we
limited.
can't.
It was,
And there's no criticism.
Yeah,
Just saying
understood.
It's a
We
group,
know-
it's a group we need to make sure
we
that
have
we're
enough
reaching out
data
to.
right
we
now.
we know
Because
we
they
have
do
missed
vote.
some populations,
We-
and so
We,
we'll.
yes, right, Joyce, we vote.
I think it was like
Among
almost
others.
700 of the 1,200.
Yeah. Well, one of the benefits of this format here is we will be having face-to-face, a lot more face-to-face meetings, so.
Which is good.
So that's good. Okay, we're actually moving ahead of schedule here, sort of,
It's okay, we can go.
Yep.
which is great.
Any word is others.
So,
You didn't need a vote or anything,
Heather,
did
forget
you?
it. Don't be so.
because I don't think we have a quorum.
I said, forget it.
Yeah, so let me sum up the action items here, or Brian, you want to sum up yours first, and then I'll fill in with mine?
So sent around an email to remind the group to send all the questions related to JM Goldson to me by August 28th, which is next Tuesday. 29th? 28th?
29th,
29th is
Wednesday.
So that's okay.
I said Wednesday, but.
You said Wednesday.
It can be Tuesday. I won't be here, so.
What is the answer, Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, we wanted, so the meeting is September 6th, which is a Thursday. So that's, yeah, the Thursday's a week, so we wanted a week. So either one is totally
You just choose one?
29th.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, 29th.
That was the only actual, action item. The rest are questions for Jay and Goldson so far. So.
You missed the first big one.
Oh, did I write it
You
down
have to
here?
work with Brian to incorporate required changes to the trifold.
Oh, well, yeah, sorry. Didn't put that one down.
That's all.
Oh, and then a meeting with Richard and the other manager to make
Right.
that a
Yes.
priority.
We also have updates to the master plan website, create a separate page for reference documents, upload and link all documents given to the consultant. You've mentioned making sure that the consultant's aware of Richard's schedule. And then I just have a list of questions for the consultant.
Oh, and yeah, then we want to change the October to September in the phasing.
Sounds great.
That was what we wanted to get that out from the beginning, we
Right.
don't need a ton of
Right, right.
intro work.
When you're done.
Yeah.
You're done?
I'm done,
So I'm wondering, and I'm very reluctant to put more on your shoulders, but I think it might be you. How would you feel about sending a note? And it sounds like you're going on vacation too, but if you were to send a note to people, probably hit send right after Labor Day, and it'll just swap in each name of the members on this committee who've been missing in action, and just remind them that it'll be a Thursday, make it sound like it'll be more interesting than apparently it really wasn't that interesting or engaging. So explain that we've hired the consultant, it'll be an excite, whatever. We're going to be discussing, it's the meat of the matter, it's looking
Yeah.
forward to, and if they're no longer interested in serving, please let you know, but each one with a personal
yeah.
name.
Yes,
so-
yes.
yeah, it's 8, it's probably no more than 8, because several people have been coming.
So-
Thank you to those who are.
Yeah, thank you much. I know Brian has, with Liz's help, has been creating a list of attendees.
Good,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
that really
And,
should be.
and that is something that's concerned me as to, the fact we don't have, and so the email will, that's a great time to do it. Let me write down a note, send out reminder, personalized.
And make it sound fun.
Reminder to AWOL, MSPP, master
Have you seen these missing members?
We've
Some
got
of
the
some of it
survey
is just
results, you
summer,
may have
I'm
missed
sure,
the survey
for some-
results.
for
I
some
mean,
folks.
Yeah,
it's the
and
sales
one of the
pitch.
things is to ask them whether they really are
Usually do take
interested in remaining on the committee, because to
but
be honest,
some
if they have not shown up for the easy times, which is, these have been easy times, when the real work starts, we need to have dedicated people.
If
so-
you're willing also, I'm sorry, but
No,
this
go
is
ahead, go
sales,
ahead.
marketing, whatever, it's like we would like you. So I would include your phone number. If you have questions, want to talk about it
Sure.
further, if you don't mind, I mean, that's what I would be doing. If I were doing it. I'm not doing it, you're doing it, so.
When you're done, I had one.
Yeah, now I have to
Heather,
make
what?
sure.
I'm gonna wait till he's done writing. I had something else to.
So, most members, when they can't make it, they do let me know.
Okay, well, that's good to
And
know.
you two should talk, because that also would help figure out who's really missing,
No,
who's trying,
we-
but not.
Yeah.
I'm out of this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
You get the
I'm,
idea.
say who's doing that, actually.
Exactly, because that would be good to know, because
Okay.
just,
So I would find it beneficial with the master plan if we can say that we lay out our meeting schedule for the master plan subcommittee alongside the planning board schedule, so that we can actually have those dates temporary in hold. So it's not us holding them up, it's, if they have to move dates, it's on them, not on us. So, like, if there's a note here, like, meeting with the planning board to discuss the final plan
And so,
in December,
Yeah.
planning board meeting.
Yeah.
Right, we put that
Schedule
on
the
the,
dates.
schedule it, like,
Yeah.
let's do a
Okay.
temporary
That's a good
layout of
point.
the
Right.
full master plan, so it's
Yep.
on our
oh,
calendars.
that's a good point.
And
That's
keeps the
very good.
planning
Bravo.
board
Agreed.
focused,
Agreed.
and then
okay.
we can also then have a better understanding of, with our other responsibilities, we can layer it in there on top of it
Yeah.
as
Exactly.
they come up.
And
Is
maybe
that-
it could be in the Outlook calendar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's-
It's- 'cause-
Yeah, I saw you put something in, deleted it.
Yeah.
So,
You've been
yeah,
playing with your
no,
Outlook calendar.
yeah, no, I've been playing, because I've been, well,
We know what
so,
you're doing.
no, that's the whole point. So that's a planning board discussion that we can talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. I
I
thought it
asked
was,
if we could have them on a calendar.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't know if you guys actually use the calendar function.
We'll get into that.
We'll talk about
Because
it
I thought I
later.
was supposed to send that link out. Okay, schedule placeholder, planning board and MSPC. What the heck is this? It's the
We can move that to
MPSC
9:55 tonight. in
meetings
our action
to
items.
coincide with master plan consultant meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we have to run it back by the consultant, say, are these what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
we'll iterate.
But I think having that laid out now would be very beneficial to all
You
of
mean
us.
simply just that it would always be on at a.
Put a date on it.
Yeah.
Real
Put an
dates.
actual date
Real
on
dates.
it. And
Okay.
say- And then,
I
yeah,
think that's great.
okay. Anything else? 'Cause if not, then we can
10
adjourn
minutes
this
early.
meeting.
We can book our Jenks rooms out now too,
Hmm.
if we need to. I mean, stuff like that, that's,
Grab 'em.
we might as well grab them. If we can lay it all out, the whole
Exactly.
schedule, and put them on that schedule.
No, it still
Hold them to
is
the
it
deadline?
still is the best place to hold a function.
Yeah,
Right.
but then we get our Jenks rooms for the community conversations and the interviews.
Exactly, that's all
Okay.
good.
I'll throw that as an action item, book meeting rooms at Jenks.
Okay,
Thanks to those
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone,
everyone.
for
Thank you,
coming.
good reps.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We never opened because we didn't have a quorum.
Oh, we didn't have a quorum.
It's great.
No, the
it's
planning
good.
board
We're
council.
Planning board
slowly
did.
furnishing, but
You're
I have to have
you're
you
a part
over
of
for
the
coffee or
master plan.
something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Plan Steering Committee.
okay, second,
All those in, Heather H. seconded.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
you have to vote again.
Sorry, I had very little sleep.
That's okay.
5-0.
Now we split
Okay.
that.
8:13. And so I have to make comments again. I declined to make comments.
It's okay.
I won't hold it against you.
Don't-
Thank you. I only had 1 minute to make comments. I'll use that minute up in complaining about having to make comments. So our next thing in front of us is to approve outstanding minutes. So we have,
We procrastinated long enough.
did we?
Yeah,
April 3rd, that's
I'll
pretty
say
bad.
that's
Yeah.
For
long
August,
gone.
yeah.
Okay,
No,
so.
I had read them out, they read them already as they were coming around.
Are those
Um,
copies?
I had no comments.
I had no comments either.
So I do, but again, I don't know how much detail you want on these.
You-
So we
so you can
typically-
approve all 6 as amended.
Oh, no, I
In
am
terms of the
probably,
motion, but if it's, you should certainly mention them if you feel.
so I just want to, again, remind the board, most of what I've got here is truly just wordsmithing, like, the materials are radically different than the current structure, then the materials are radically different than those of the current structures, you know, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think you want to hear from me on that, so
No, those
if
are-
there's a little more substance, new planning board member, per the town bylaw, it actually was state law, so I do make some corrections, and again, if you want to just vote to move them as amended, that's what we've typically done,
Yes,
and I just hand
exactly.
them over to Liz, she'll have a hard copy, if anybody ever thinks something funny turns up, Heather gets them before she
Right,
signs
exactly, and
them.
if anything does need to be ultimately
back.
read,
I
we
think
can do that.
that's an excellent idea and in keeping with standard procedure. So
I'm
why
gonna make
don't
a-
we start with the,
You
Can we do it as individuals?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can do it as individuals.
Because there's some where I was not present.
yes.
Okay,
yeah,
So
same here.
Yep.
I'm
point.
going to start with Tuesday, April the 3rd.
I make a
Yeah.
move.
Oh, you actually weren't there. Yeah, it's just three of us. Move to approve as amended.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's three.
So that's Maureen, Betsy, and myself in
Deanne.
favor, and 2 abstentions.
And I'll be bringing these to you, Liz. I'm just gonna wait.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, now we move on to Friday, April the 20th.
And, boy, this hardly even looks like amendments, but it says special, and I added the word permits, you know, so again, I don't know what you want to call it, an amendment.
Perfect. Those-
So, I'll make a motion unless somebody else has anything else.
Actually, you can't make that motion.
Oh, okay, so but I will hand it on,
Yes.
because it's an edit.
Betsy or Heather?
Okay, move approval of the minutes of April 20th as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
Two
that's,
abstaining, or
Heather
two.
Van Mering, Betsy, and myself, and 2 abstentions. Motions on Monday, April 23rd.
So another edit here, just on 63 Vine Street, the first paragraph, since any development would require a special permit, a demo delay would be done. That's not really demo delay, so I changed it. I just tried to, I didn't want to rewrite it, I just put any development would require a special permit, and that's accurate. So I'm just
Yeah.
making it that way.
That's a good point.
And then, that's it. So for me, I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Okay, do we have a
Second.
second? Betsy seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And congratulations, Heather Hannon, that's your very first one you were at, I think.
Yeah, I thought I was at the next one too, but I can't tell.
It's on the 30th.
It was so memorable.
Well, I
Sorry.
remember there were a bunch at the high school.
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is at the high
You were
school.
done.
Okay, so this is, we're
What's the
discussing
date in?
the minutes of
this
April
one?
30th, 2018.
That's the first night of town.
Yeah, I was there.
I
Yep.
think I recall this one where you weren't there.
This was
It was a very short meeting. Yeah,
there was one special permit. It was a really like an addition on a
Yeah.
a
Exactly,
nice
that
house.
we
I like-
need- that we
I-
needed to
it
get
was-
through, and then.
and certainly the vote
then it was right
tallies
into
all
town
seem
meeting.
to indicate you weren't present, because they're all.
Yeah, that's weird though. I remember being at the high school for
Oh,
2 meetings.
You definitely were at the high school
We had a
for
couple
at least, yeah,
Was it when we were in executive session with the select board?
no, I remember, it was when we were
That
in
was
the
the
other,
one-
it was when we were in the other,
We were in that
small,
small
the
room,
smaller
like, two
room,
times.
yeah,
yeah.
where we have just the planning board ones. We've been
Maybe
there
I
about
couldn't
4
vote yet.
I
Is
don't
that
think
what
you
it
could
was?
vote. Well, you were not, the first one you were at,
Oh, you did attend somewhere you couldn't vote yet because you weren't.
That was the one in the
Wasn't
town
official
planner office was the very first one. Then we went to.
Because they had to wait so many days.
Well.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Why don't
Yeah.
it's obvious you weren't at this meeting, so,
I think, yeah, I think that's right.
do we
I
have a
think you could
motion,
vote.
any amendments on this?
Yeah.
Of course.
It's
Okay.
not a bad thing, I like it.
Yeah, well,
This is good.
So,
What you got?
oh, the it's page 2, town meeting warrant article 12. There was a discussion on Article 12. It was noted that the planning board has been discussing revising zoning on North Main Street. Okay, and therefore this article is premature, period. You could put maybe, but I think we felt it was premature, so I put is. And period, the planning board would prefer zoning on this site, and this is where it really went off the rails here, prefer zoning on this site to be considered with the revised zoning. So we were
Yeah.
talking about
Yes, okay,
revised.
that's good, that's good, yeah.
okay,
That's
sure.
it, so that's
Yeah,
my amendment.
Okay, there's a motion?
Move to approve as amended?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that's 5-0. Okay, Tuesday, May the 8th.
Thank you.
I'm going to recuse myself from discussions on this one and voting.
Okay.
Okay. Any amendments?
Yep.
Any substantial amendments that will change the course of history?
Yeah, let's see, I think not. Let me just double check. I clarified duplex here. I mean, again, I don't think, it was just the
Duplex
language,
definition.
it was just the way we were explaining what we were doing. Let's see, on the boat club thing, which is definitely one, let's see. So the boat club is, there were a bunch of pronouns I changed, because there was
Okay.
discussion, so those you don't care about.
We
No.
do, but,
Well, I mean, I
I mean,
changed
we
them
will,
without.
we will make note of it.
No substantial, I changed to the content here.
okay.
Let's see, no, I'm not seeing the club, nope, it's all just pronouns mostly turning into
Singular,
traditional
plural.
subjects that make it clear.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave that.
Do we have a?
Move approval as amended?
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's 4 with Heather Van Mering abstaining.
That's 3.
3.
I wasn't voting at that meeting.
Really?
That's what it says in the notes.
You're not in attendance.
I hadn't been sworn in yet.
Oh, okay, that would do it.
Wait, but
May
it says 5-0
May
on petition for Grove Place,
No, I think you were voting.
401 on Boat Club.
And I
Am I on the
remember,
wrong page? Or the wrong?
What date are
May
you looking
8th?
at? May 8th?
I'm on May 8th. On the last page, there's, oh, sorry, sorry.
It was just for the
just
minutes.
minutes, yeah.
Okay, so.
You were there.
We
You
are-
were voting, you're on the record.
401.
Can't hide
Because she was not a member at the time of the meeting, okay.
Abstaining.
I'm confused.
Welcome to the planning board.
Okay.
May 29th.
Okay.
And again, I'm going to recuse myself on this, because I was not present for part of the meeting.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go.
So do we have?
By the way, you'll see this, Liz, I caught it late. Jennifer Goldson, Goldson, and you'll be hearing about her going forward. so.
Yes, I knew it.
Oh, okay, you got it, you're on top of it,
Yeah.
okay, good,
As soon as I
thank
saw
you,
it in
Liz.
writing, I said, yeah.
Well, wait a minute, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
I'm, think nothing here that anybody would consider any
Okay.
change of any.
Move approval?
so
Yeah, this is an
Move
approval,
approval amended.
this is amended, though, yeah.
okay, so we move as amended?
So, You made the
Did we have
motion?
amendments?
Yeah, it's,
Okay,
again,
just
they're
minus
not
it, okay.
content.
I move
there's no
approval as
change.
amended?
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so that's 4-0 with Heather Van Mering abstaining.
Good.
I'm so glad we got those done.
So thank you very much, Liz. That was
Good for keeping us up to date.
I was
Yep.
going to say a boatload of work, but
A lot of
maybe-
residents wanted.
maybe I shouldn't say boatload of work.
This is
Vote
all
rack.
good.
So,
A shed, a pavilion, I want a whole pavilion.
So that leads us to June and July that we're missing still, right, to vote in?
Right.
Well, that's a lot.
I don't know, it's usually a few, I don't know, a few weeks.
So,
Yeah.
I'm taking next week off and I'm gonna get caught up.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
that's fine.
That's how you're taking the week.
No, I just,
I want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we have done our reporting
Vacation, what you do is on
secretary.
vacation?
Devotion to duty.
I'm getting my job ready for college.
Oh,
Oh, well, that's more important,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
No, I was just making sure we didn't have any that were still sitting out that we did not
Right.
have.
Right.
No, I
Right.
think,
College.
yeah, no, and
University.
we can talk with her about a
Perfect.
reasonable
Yes.
schedule in terms of 2 to 4 weeks or something like that.
Oh, no, I was just making sure we didn't have any that we, in our possession, that needed to be reviewed still as.
No,
No.
yeah, but, no, but
We were
it
fine.
still takes time to write up.
Yep, okay,
Exactly.
good. So
Okay.
we don't have any in our court at this time?
No, not at
That's what I
the
needed.
Okay,
excellent. So we are cruising, which is good. The faster we go, the sooner we go home.
I have more paper for you.
All town meeting
To
articles?
sign? Oh,
No,
yes.
no, just sign, no, just sign.
Oh, yeah, so
Business.
fall town meeting articles.
So this is the update, I mean, this is nearly the same,
thank you.
so you've seen, most of this is all done.
Mhm.
Highlighted a few things that are still ongoing that need
Thanks.
voting. Actually, I mean, all these eventually need voting quite
Right.
soon, because we want to give these to legal council.
Right, for
Obviously,
his
as
review, yeah.
apt, as quickly as we can before town meeting. Because that's one, yeah, we would like to get it
Yeah,
into town council,
Yep.
yesterday.
Do you have
Understood.
access to that
Yep, it's up.
FAR thing up there?
Anything that's on, yeah, I have this.
No, you said you had a little spreadsheet where you showed the FAR and the building height.
Yeah. So,
Not
it's
that
here.
one. Somewhere. So, I believe that, somewhere along the line, we should note which ones we've actually come to a decision on, and those are the ones which have not been marked in gray.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I don't think we don't need to talk about Article 1.
right, no, everything that hasn't been marked in gray, we've already discussed
yeah.
and approved
right.
I'm not,
informally.
I don't know about, I wouldn't necessarily say approved, but we've let it
Yeah.
sit.
Wait, sorry?
I think the only one they've actually voted specifically to put it on the town meeting warrant is Article 1.
Really?
In term, yeah, I think,
we
That's
had
what's-
voted on these.
We voted on Article 3, we voted Article 4,
there's definitely more than that we have.
we voted Article 5, we had a big discussion about square footage. And Article 7, we certainly,
Yeah,
I'm
oh
pretty-
yeah, so that's, so
So I
7
think
should be,
the-
7 should be
yeah, the ones
gray,
that we
and
are
so
still in.
7 should be gray as well,
7?
That's-
Oh, that's
because
the-
that's not voted on.
Correct.
okay,
That is
all right.
correct.
So
Okay.
it's, so this is, so
So
that's
let's-
the one thing that's, okay.
So why don't we just move through here and look at Article 2? This is the
6 and
dormer.
7.
Yeah, I'd really like to deal with that. And
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
yeah.
I don't know that we've actually come to a,
so where we ended up last about this was that, Dennis said, I'll think about it.
Right.
But really, I mean, we started looking, at some other towns. We started looking at some ideas, pictures, and then we basically, I don't think we're there, sadly.
Well, we've got a little time left.
There is,
I
but
think
but
we're
it's
close. I
coming
think
up- but
we're
it's
all
coming up
close.
on it.
It's just, it's almost like, we all know that the dormers are a problem
Right,
and how to go about it. I think we've, in our discussions, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but please correct me, obviously, is that we have come to a conclusion that they need to be dealt with.
yes,
We didn't want to, we were looking at it through site plan review, so it can't be denied, but it can be adjusted,
right.
right?
well, yeah, we didn't even, so the major question that we asked Dennis, and he didn't have a good, he just wasn't sure about it. The major question that we asked him at the end was, should this be a, design guidelines that exist that are enforceable for all, for anyone, some type of a trigger, or some type of trigger, meaning that if you're under site plan review already, or if you're requiring a special permit, whatever you're asking for, then you would be instituting these guidelines? Or is it something that, like, you can't get a building permit for X, you have to get a special permit?
I thought we were.
We had not made the distinction.
Okay, so what I thought we were doing is that we were going to use this language about the 50% and we were gonna draft guidelines
Yeah,
to get more specific when things come to us.
But
About
so,
what we like and don't like.
Well,
but then we also said is like, there are many situations, the rest of it is that, that we could see many situations where it could be 50% of the roof line, and it doesn't, and then it's perfectly,
I want to
Appropriate.
jump in on that.
Oh,
As I
I don't
keep
think it
reading
ever is
these ZBA rulings, and I think it's pretty tight, and yet, I mean, we just saw one cabot.
not
and
continuous.
It just, I think,
Not a I'm sorry,
unfortunately,
sorry.
we've got to make it as, I guess, black letter law, just as cut and dry as possible, because if it's, so I think we've got to, I agree both. I would like the design guidelines, but I'd also like to just deal with certain percentages.
Yeah.
And I understand that in the ideal world, some brilliant architect could come up with something that would make us all happy. It's not going to happen most of the time, so I'd just rather tighten it
I
up
agree
as,
with you, and I
make
think
it as
that-
clear and simple as possible.
well, we did have one amendment, we did talk about this. This says total length of the roof line, but we were,
side.
but we also wanted to say we were only going to use this on the second, 2.5 stories.
I
So
think-
it would be on the third, I guess, the 2.5 story.
The
don't know.
Half story,
Yeah.
and the other thing was visible from the
Public way.
public way.
Well, but someone brought up the fact that you could, if you put a big dorm across the back of your home, it will affect the
Will affect your
property
neighbors on
behind
the other
it.
side.
True.
True. It's
And
not
it's on the
the
third floor,
50% of the
basically.
total wall length, it's of each roof section. I don't know, or each elevation. So if you go the plain length of it's, how would you, I don't know the language, but it's not of the total length around the building, and 50% of that, it's of each elevation length.
Right, so it's not the
That's it.
circumference.
That's it, you got it.
what it says, 50% of the wall plane.
No elevation like that. I should
It's
say.
the elevation length. So the wall plane length is that, it isn't clear whether it's the total plane length all the way around, including.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But
You're
a plane,
including-
a plane is one surface. If they were talking about the whole perimeter, wouldn't it say wall plane?
Actually, that is
Entire
pretty good.
perimeter.
yeah.
It would, but
This tells me one plane at a time.
it tells you and I that, but it will not tell the ZBA that. It's not clear enough.
And yeah, they're the
They'll
people.
have to figure it out. I actually think they can be
Well,
directed to the
if
dictionary.
there's a way to make this
That's pretty good.
plainer?
Oh, boy.
We just-
Oof.
What
Oh,
about
boy.
each wall
That's
plane?
boy.
length?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the length,
Yeah.
and actually, that's too many words stacked up. The length of each plane, or each wall plane,
So,
Each wall plane.
yeah.
so if there's, okay, so if there's cleaning up of this needed, and then we're trying to use the center business district, this is the, obviously, for those at home, this is the center business district language right
Oh, it
now that's
is.
currently
Oh,
on the, that's currently exists right now.
sorry.
So it's 7.3.13.4, here it is. So
That's
what,
pretty good.
I don't like the 8 and 10 though, that's the
so
duck in there.
I wish this would go on one page.
Well, but we would,
Even if we're talking about third floor only, Heather?
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys are looking at the actual, this is CBD language
is
up there.
CBD.
I'm looking at this, Article 2,
yeah,
that he wrote, and it's the total length of the roof in his.
Yes, that's
And I
right.
was like, so
So we're
So
looking
we
at
should
apples
use
and
this
oranges.
instead.
So, yeah,
this is
Wall
much
plane.
better.
don't, yes, but I do not believe that we should saying that a shed dormer is 8 feet and the gable is 10 feet. This is a CBD, which is dealing specifically with the houses that are in the CBD.
sure.
Which
So,
have very distinct architecture features to them.
so.
So I would like to pull the 8 feet, the dormer sizes and the gable sizes, and stick to.
So we'll just delete the first sentence in item 2?
And item 2 is no dormer can exceed 50% of the wall of each plane, each
But the-
Well, just remove whichever is less.
I just have to
I
think of
can,
the
I can
right
work, we can work on,
terminology.
we can work on this.
in the
So,
industry
but
to-
it's really, we need to make decisions
Yeah,
pretty,
yeah.
so
These are
we're
pretty
there.
good.
So if,
These are-
these were all Dennis.
Yeah, they're
in-
good.
with input from us, but this is
Yeah.
like, 85% Dennis.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
yeah, and I'm
so-
looking at number 3, three would take
So-
care of a lot of those problems.
Look,
'cause,
okay,
man, I'm just,
then the-
okay, let's define what
Oh,
exactly
it's
are we.
three. Three is what we're
The
saying.
sheds are, it's like 2 issues, put them in your 2 buckets here. One is the sheds, and the other is the gabled, or they could be short sheds, but the small, one window, let's call them dormers, when you get them, and they're actually very big, and typically on a colonial, they're putting up 3 very large, typically they're gabled dormers, running right across, and they're just too wide,
Too
that's
wide,
all.
yeah.
They're wide, they're tall, they're just monsters.
Yeah,
They're out of
they're in
scale
excess
with
of what they
typical.
should be.
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
again, so it sounds like.
This helps.
like-
So 3,
mix-
4, and 5 are actually very good.
yeah.
so,
They are.
Mixing and,
Can we, oh,
yeah, sorry, mixing and matching what we want to do outside of the CBD, using this language is great. That's probably the best of all possibilities. I'm still want to focus on what is going to trigger these guidelines, meaning that, is it
Oh, I see.
going to be a special permit? That if someone wants to do more than 50% of the wall plane length or whatever language we decide on, and that's going to, like,
I see.
we can't, I mean, I understand the language when we have time to
Okay,
craft the
but what are
language.
the options? Okay, we get it. What are the options, so? Special
so
permit,
there's-
one's
well-
just a flat out,
I mean, I would imagine there's a way that you could just say that, just a number, and if,
Yeah.
meaning 50%, whatever percent, and saying if it's over that, it requires a special permit, or potentially site plan review. I don't really think, it's whether or not whether we want the zoning board / us also, because we would do the review as well.
Our review.
If we're gonna be reviewing this, but but it's gonna be still, without a doubt, more reviews for them.
Yeah.
well, I'd
but the
say
whole
special
point is that we
permit.
want to review them, that's. the
That's,
point.
so this is exactly what I'm saying, how do we wanna review? I'm trying to give everyone the options, which is, you could trigger site plan review, you could trigger a special
Special
permit.
permit. Do it, special
for the
permit.
special permit trigger.
so,
Why special permit?
Well, at least that's more than site plan review. The answer is because all of this is for our residential districts, and the success of it is going to ride or fall with the ZBA. And again, I'm not really,
So I
I've been
think-
kind of discouraged by how things have gone with our new language, which should have produced certain results, and it's not. They're just still granting the permits, because people get in there, with their all due respect, they're architects and lawyers, and they just do the dog and pony show, and the ZBA pushes them through.
well, so the benefit of the special permit is that conditions are much more,
It's more.
No, it said you can very easily deny the
You can
permit
deny
for
Right.
not following these guidelines that we're giving them. I mean, it's a very easy process.
It's
Yeah.
more
Site
bright
plan
lines.
review,
tighter.
it's basically, in that's.
you can put reasonable conditions, but
Yeah.
you can't.
Can't
So-
deny.
You can't deny it. So, if we go with, so what we're going, I'm sorry, I lost it a little because I wanted to show
And by
people
the
a
way-
picture of a dormer we don't want, just because it's an
Guaranteed,
amusing one.
if 50% is what we're stating, that's exactly, it's 49.99 where the
they'll draw the line.
builders
Yeah.
will come in, so
Yeah.
we just.
Yeah, they'll, most likely, they would be, the two, either at the front, like on both sides, like if you're looking straight at the house, they would, it would come up on, all the way to the front, or they would put them in the middle.
Right.
So,
Well-
And the Cambridge guidelines even said how far back from the front of the house.
Yeah.
It's
I-
3
yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
Number 5, 3
But
feet.
I'm not sure 3 feet, number
It's a
5,
minimum of 3 feet from the
from the wall
plane.
plane that runs
Right.
perpendicular to the
Okay.
dormer face. My concern is that we want to have them staggered on both sides, so you aren't presented with a single large thing as you look at it from the front,
Large, yeah, on the plane.
a plane, yeah, so.
By
Except it's
staggered.
50% of the wall plane of each plane length.
Right, so I would say that, sure, if you're gonna put 50% on each side of the house, let's say you have a gable, which is, you see, you don't want them both at the exact distance from the front, because then it looks like one solid mass. If one side is pushed back, then you at least have some sort of a visual step back.
what if they're both pushed back 3 feet?
Well,
or 4 feet, or whatever, I mean, so that was how you would.
That's different though.
Yeah.
So what he's talking about is the dormers that are on the side of the house that you can see from the front that make it look like a box versus this 3 foot is talking about how far back from the plane of the walls
Right.
yeah.
of the face of the house it's set back.
Just to
I actually don't
clarify-
mind doing the
Back, so it'd
3
be
feet.
further back on the roof line.
This is your roof, and roof, certain people will say.
That's okay,
And
I
you want
gotcha.
it to come back from this point. That's where you're
Okay.
measuring.
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually prefer, from an ice damming issue, that 3 foot is a big issue. Because you actually would like to have it on the same plane as your wall and actually have your roof project out farther so you don't have the heat coming in, that little thing, because
Yeah,
that's
where
where
the
the ice
waterfall
damming.
going, yeah.
You get ice damming problems. So design wise, this 3 foot is an issue, but for design for water.
Can we also clarify that for this Article 2 language, we are only talking about third floor? Because I
Yes.
think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I've got that down somewhere that we are talking about, that's
And how do there are a lot of homes in town that this is an existing condition that does not, so if they do anything to their house, does it trigger it?
No, it technically means they're non-conforming.
but that means that they would then be subject to special permits for anything else well, no, only if they increase that type of nonconformity.
Exactly.
Right, so they should be okay.
I would want legal to
Of course.
say that.
So if
I don't
one-
think, I don't think you're right, I don't think you're right.
I think it's. if you-
I'm not sure, That's-
We
that-
had this, we had a similar.
I think it's
yeah.
debatable is the problem, and
That
that,
reminds me,
we-
sorry to get you off track, but do we have we notified Art as to when, or Mina, when we're expecting to have them in?
no, but it is very well understood how, I mean,
Yeah.
this is now the third town meeting that we've done, but we,
Well,
But no, but it's good to make sure, it's good.
but
to
no,
make
we've
sure
not
that
set a
it's-
date,
Well,
that's
we-
what you're asking, we've
we-
not set a
we've
date
not
for
set a
him to,
date.
for him to come in front of the board.
Okay, so why don't we?
That's an action.
We'll put that on action item, set a date.
So.
We've had, so we'll ask Art to, or we'll ask town council to opine on how this would affect other development
It's.
on the lot.
Would it make any properties subject to 357? That's all it is.
Yeah, and
And
we,
I think it could, and I don't,
well, I want to.
that's a different conversation.
That's a
No,
different,
it's
but
actually a big conversation.
we've had a project come before this board where we were confused about why we were only given a special permit for the side of the house rather than the back. They were doing work on the back and the side.
It
and
does
came-
depend on what nonconformity you are making worse or not touching,
Right.
depending upon what it is. However, it's very specific instances, so therefore, we would maybe have to put,
Let's
there
talk.
could be
okay.
other language we would have to change in 357 to make this not non-conforming.
So if there's, a house that has, say, 80% of one side of their house is a dormer, and they want to add, as it currently is, then this law goes into effect, they want to put a 50% dormer on the other side.
But I think special permit without a doubt.
'Cause they are-
Regardless of the regardless of the other one, if they're putting 50% or more anywhere.
But it's
Well,
for each plane we're
for
talking
each
about.
plane. So if they have an existing plane, which is 80%, why should they need a special permit to work on another plane, which is 0 right now?
That's kind of what I would like to
Well, it
get.
depends on
It's
what they're
kind of, that,
planning.
well, see, that, this is what,
What do
I'd like to
we,
get Art's
I-
information on
I
that
think you
before
can
we.
see both sides. is
well,
what
let's,
yeah.
what do we want to have happen? Do we want to, if someone,
Going forward, just 50% on each plane. I don't, if it's already out non-conforming, it's,
So you need a special permit if you want to go above 50%
On-
on a single plane, on any plane.
Yeah.
Should we have
Period.
something special about the front?
Dormers on the front, dormers are facing the facade, or
Yeah.
dormers on the
Like,
facade.
is that
Yeah.
like another bullet that is, if the dormer's facing the street, then
And-
it can't be 50%, of like one
Yeah.
huge one on the front, like
Right.
over here on the
Oh, gee.
Apologies, you should be good.
Thank you. Like, maybe there's just an extra bullet that means on the front, it can't be continuous, it has to be broken up.
Yeah,
Because I can't picture that looking good anywhere.
okay,
not on
so,
a third story, on a bungalow, but not on a,
no,
right.
they have single ones, but they're not 50.
Even the
They're more
old
like
ones,
30.
they're not more than 50%.
You're right, yeah.
so we have, are you keeping notes here, or am I
I'm
keeping?
doing both kind
Good.
of paper and it's
We
not,
Okay,
put like a
that's
subcommittee
confusing.
together to just kind of work on language to present back to us. to discuss as a,
Yeah, but Brian's trying to get this last one.
Well,
I don't know if we're gonna get anywhere tonight on this one
I
without our.
think,
no, yeah, I mean,
well-
it's basic, it's using the existing language, which,
Right.
and
Pretty
then
good.
making it.
So
a
could
pro-
you draft it? Yeah, third floor.
so,
Yeah.
But
why don't we,
Heather
Let's just
Ryan
access the
did add
application.
something,
Yeah.
I think, the main facade, let's just call it.
Yeah, we
the
didn't
main-
finish that, we didn't finish that
well, the
conversation.
main facade is a weird one. What happens if you're on the corner? Which side
The
facade is
Where
yours?
your
entrance
front door
facade.
is.
Okay,
Entrance
Right.
facade.
if you can find the front door in some of these modern homes.
If it's a two-family, no, I mean, if it's two, the whole thing is, it's very tricky on the language on this, and that's why.
Well,
we need
so,
to go a couple more rounds.
Street facing, the primary street, these people have an address, how about, I mean, you may
Yeah.
miss a couple, like 10 in the whole
Let me-
town, but.
I want to pick up on your suggestion that we have a subcommittee to deal with this, and so who wants to be on it?
And this is quick, by the way, who's it, we're gonna be,
Can
meet, not
Brian
quick,
draft
not,
it first
not that it's
and
gonna
then-
take a short amount of time, meaning that we have to meet
Quickly.
in a short, we have to meet.
I
soon.
think, Brian, if you could draft, including some of these revisions,
Like
and,
using this stuff and then.
Yeah, no, I still have no, there's
I
no,
think Betsy and I are volunteering ourselves to work with Brian to come back to the planning board to discuss in more detail.
Thank you.
okay.
thank you. So I'm going to write that down before you change your mind.
Heather,
Before we
you
do
had some
it,
ideas that I want to make sure are captured.
She's talking about the street facades.
You'll
the-
capture that?
That's visible by the public way, should be not a
I like
continual
that.
that.
mass.
Not
Street
more than-
facades visible from the
No.
public way, but
It's
It's
I-
just the
no.
front,
No.
because
You
some
don't
of these
care if
houses
it's
on the
visible.
corner, it kind of doesn't matter if it's on the
Yeah, it
side, it's
does.
like the front of the.
It's both.
okay, well, you're going to be
Depends on the pitch of
worrying,
the roof, right, where the pitch is.
but you're going to be worrying about this, so
I
we're going
wouldn't
to,
want to be so strict, but sure.
so what I've got note is Brian will use CBD dormer language with removing,
So you just say revised CBD,
Right.
because it's not really, nothing's really
revised,
decided.
yeah, revised
Revised
CBD
CBD.
dormer languages will work, okay, so then, and then Brian, you're going to, so you folks can meet like within,
Like within
Yeah.
Within a
seven,
week?
within a week, can we
You
be
know,
within a week?
yeah, whatever
That's fine.
came, like the dormer, the two-family language that we came up is working at the ZBA.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So we just gotta find a way to make the dormer language work, and if
I,
there
yeah,
are some.
I'm even
Okay.
curious to know where this would even go, by the way, in what section of the bylaw.
yeah.
But
Well,
that's
that's another issue,
So-
that let's move
Okay.
on.
okay, but, to be clear.
Subcommittee's on it, we'll
we
come
don't-
back and
So then
report
the
back.
next time, no, because like the next time we meet on this, we still haven't, we're definitely meeting on September 11th,
Okay.
Yes,
but we
I
might
don't
be,
have dates.
we might
for
be
these
meeting on the-
meetings.
I know,
We did
so-
the Google thing and, or
Yeah.
Doodle, and then nothing happened.
September
so-
11th, we have,
we're definitely meeting on the 11th. It's a
Yeah.
question of whether we're also meeting on the 4th.
4th is the day after Labor
Fourth,
Day.
you
Right.
can't, it's an
I'm not
election.
meeting on the fourth.
You
Okay.
can't meet on
So
election.
then, yeah, we might, so then we're meeting on the 6th, then the 11th, and
Okay.
then
That's about
the
it.
18th or the 25th is a toss-up.
No, you can't do the.
Oh, not the
sorry.
18th, correct, yeah, it's the 25th.
Okay, well, that's what we got
So
then.
then let's just do that, so,
Give me
just
that
so we're
again.
clear on September, yeah, September, it's 6/11/25.
And,
And then we can talk about those being somewhere. Like on a calendar.
Yeah, so that's we can roll into that question right now if we want to,
No,
but
no,
let's,
no,
but
no,
we, but
let's-
maybe
we're-
we're not, maybe
We're not
maybe
gonna roll
later.
into it, because we're still talking town meeting. now.
6/11/25, okay.
See,
Town.
you canceled it, it's on my calendar as canceled, Brian.
That was the miss.
Maybe he
Okay.
was just playing.
Okay, so let's move,
Replay and put it back on, will you put it back on on our
okay,
calendar?
so we're moving on to Article 6. So the next one is the FAR in the east. Did I get that right this time?
Wait, yes, but Maureen, we were talking earlier, Article 3, that's what I was talking
In
about.
the East Core.
Yeah, but 3, yeah, let's just make sure. So that, you're scratching all the the word attached everywhere, that had not been done? Because I had there were somewhere in some minutes that you were just going to check, because
Yeah.
I thought they had
And it was,
eliminated
she
it.
said, be safe, just take it out while you're doing it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Which is this, I'm sorry.
Article 3 that we voted on,
Oh, yeah, okay,
Um,
never mind.
okay.
yeah, quite a while. ago.
Article 4 is done.
So 6, so
Six.
FAR.
FAR.
Okay, so I did a little bit,
Yeah,
I
let
have
me,
that-
let me
I have
just,
that
a
up.
little intro.
yes,
So-
so, go for it.
We're going to make a decision tonight as to whether or not this goes forward, because we've talked about this a lot, and so if we are going to we're going to have an up or down vote tonight on whether or not the FAR goes onto the town fall meeting articles. So that's just an intro, and then onwards we go.
Okay, so these are every single parcel in the East Core. I will get a map up to show exactly which parcels we're talking about. But I have the addresses here. I got the lot size and the gross floor area. These are both directly from the assessor's database.
Okay.
That's,
Perfect.
that's what I'm using, so you know the
Makes
data is set. Then I figured out the current FAR, and then I went and just actually physically looked to see how many stories are there.
Okay.
So there's a few that I just put that would be that were really easy to determine. I'm sorry, these are all basically whether or not under the current zoning of special permits stopping at basically a maximum of 2.5.
Right.
There's no way to go above 2.5. Could they go to 3 stories? So basically everything that has an existing FAR of around 1 or more than 1, you can kind of determine. So there's a decent amount. We have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings that already at 2.5. And then there's a couple that are much higher. I believe so 10 Winchester Place, this is one of the largest buildings in the center. And then I believe here it is 10 Converse, so that's the Mill Pond.
Yeah.
And then I believe Bookends is another a high one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, maybe it's not. No, I think it's just a 2.5.
Yeah.
It's a 2.5. So, and then what's this one? The 3, it's existing 3, but it's quite low, so never mind. Meaning the FAR is quite low, even though it's already at 3 stories. So, I don't know why this note is here.
Is it just dropping in?
Yeah, I think that's,
Oh,
Oh, look it up. Which one is it?
yeah,
yeah.
30 Mount
Wait,
Vernon.
is that the fire station?
Could be the fire station. No, but I think that this is,
Oh, because that's not.
this- yeah, the fire station-
That's not a
yeah,
formula at
no.
all, and I would think it would be.
no, that is the fire station, but I think that I think it can't go up to 3 stories because it's already at 3, 'cause it's already at 3 stories. But it could go, whatever, but yes, no, that is the fire station.
Okay.
I'm just wondering why, I guess this could have been either, I could have put no there or not
Yeah.
anything there, but the
Well, it's
rest,
up to the town to do it.
right, so, 2 to 8 Mount Vernon, so this is, Lyceum?
The Lyceum
The
building?
Lyceum
Yeah,
building?
by the way, that is not a rehab. That building's a,
No, it's our
I know.
historic,
I
yes.
know, but it's
You don't
not-
like the term, yeah.
it's not a rehab. It's a,
No.
it would be a
Rebad.
Well, you're both right. How about that?
It looks like rehab, but it's not, that, just to be
So-
clear.
I don't, yeah, I think the word is restore the third
It's
floor. I didn't know what to
actually
call
inaccurate
it.
Because restoration, you've got some building material there. It's just
That's
totally wrong.
a fair point. Even this is,
Rebuild.
the
Just
the
say
more
re-
important thing is the data, but
No,
but
no, I understand.
just
but
say
it's
yes.
just say yes.
Just
Yeah,
say yes.
Yeah, it's you know what? That's just a good, good thing to do anyway, right?
Okay, so can we get to the elevator speech version of this? What are we taking away from this? Which
So-
of the ones are constrained by the current FAR and which are not?
Yeah, so basically, all these there's a lot of one-story buildings in the East Core, and I would say more than half of them are stuck at 1 or 1.5, some of them at 2. It seems like it's affecting a decent amount, though, in my opinion. I would say more than half of
Yeah,
the
that's
buildings
okay.
couldn't do even a responsible addition under the current FAR.
With that, we're talking about, I know like Get in Shape for Women, where that is one of them, right? That could go up to
That,
3
most of
stories.
that complex, so
whole
that,
area.
that's
complex, and
one
it goes
building,
right
so
around
that's,
the corner.
we should
Yeah.
get to the map, continue, I'm sorry.
But that's not historical. We have the insurance company next to Converse Place, next to Lucia's. That could go up to 3 stories. It's sitting at 1 right now.
Right, but that's in the PUD. So that's another
It
piece
is.
of this that we should be looking at. So do you want to bring on the PUD?
No, why don't we go to the map first?
I think
Talk
seeing
about
seeing it on here will make it, because you'll see the buildings and you'll actually see how much of them are covered. This is better
What
than,
coverages.
better than Google Earth by far.
Yeah, but you also do want to see the PUD, because that's
Yeah.
another piece of the whole.
We know, I mean, yeah, we can show both.
While that's loading.
That's like cherry on the ice cream.
I just wanted to show you a dormer we don't
This is
want.
way too long.
Oh, no window.
Oh, what?
I
Ew.
can't, that exists in town?
This is in Cambridge.
Okay.
Oh,
On my
thank
walk
God.
from work, I see this and I thought, I gotta take a picture of that,
Blank
because
wall dormers.
So do you want to write in here that they need to have windows?
they need to have windows
That might not be
Yes.
obvious.
on the,
Well, one would think.
Dormer
better
must
describe
include
that
windows.
plane
But-
of the
but
dormer.
seeing the example
Never
there, you have to say,
underestimate
"Well, that should
what'll
be obvious."
happen.
Here
So-
it
I was
is.
really shocked when I saw
Put that in.
that. I've walked
That's
by
right.
that home
Must
for
have a
20
window.
years.
Oh, my God.
That's taking an entirely too long. The thing is, what you want to see is the parcels associated with these buildings,
Yes.
which is why I prefer the GIS, but for some reason it's going slower, so we can only see this. So the East Core encompasses up to here,
Yeah.
the fire station, and then Mill Pond, and so all of these buildings and some of the and these buildings as well. So
Yes.
this Starbucks and
Yeah, yeah.
down here in Duncan. So the other side, I believe, is also part of it.
Yeah, where's the post office?
The post office is here, the post
Okay,
office is
okay,
in it as
yeah.
well, so it
like
actually
that,
does,
yeah.
yeah, it's the entire length of Thompson Street.
Okay.
Wow.
This was.
That's the East Core, so I'll also get the other,
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
so,
There she goes.
okay, so there's the entirety of the East Core, so yeah, I believe, so yeah, this is part of the East Core, even though it's,
It's on Shore
yeah.
Shore Road? Okay.
Yeah. So, it's all these buildings, all of these buildings, all of these buildings. So that's where all these numbers were taken from. So, yeah, so a lot, so this is a single story, this is a single story.
Yeah.
Most of this row, until you get to halfway, are single story.
Right. But the bigger question is what would be proposed for demolition or reconstruction? And that's the question. How are you going to deal with the,
Well, I mean, we have been very upfront in the CBD rules and regulations, as well as the zoning bylaw, that the East Core is all, according to the map that we created, historically significant, and it's harder, it does have bite, meaning because you essentially need a special permit to do anything, so it can be
Exactly.
denied for that reason. It's specifically spelled out. We've also been a part of, the town is behind the idea of, through many years of surveys and everything, that this specific part of downtown is extremely important, and everyone appreciates the low, or just the pedestrian street that it is, and that if there's going to be development, that's in the North Core. So we've been very upfront that the East Core is
Right.
not really to be messed with in a way.
that's been the,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so I think we
Some of us
have,
were-
meaning that we have that to rely on.
Exactly, because
Um,
that's been the general public consensus over many years.
Exactly.
But it does seem that there are, I think, a number of cases where there are one-story buildings where it does make
So
sense,
go
and
back
many
to the
that don't.
PUD, because that was
Sure.
part
Sure.
of what that was meant to address.
So,
For the Eddie's Core, in fact. We need the picture, the map. And
Yeah.
actually, there's more than the map, because we had other, I didn't bring those in, I wasn't expecting to. But
so
you
the
have
East Core, just again, to see it in, so you can
Here
see
we go.
exactly that I'm right here, that so don't look at, the colors, obviously, that's the height zone, but the east core is just these buildings.
Yeah.
And then PUD.
Yeah, it doesn't do enough to show.
So
what
the
was-
PUD
It's
is,
just a tiny corner.
yeah, it's, and we didn't cross Dennis didn't want to cross the street, which made sense. So, I don't think that that's odd at all. So, but
Insurance
There
building,
were-
CVS, and China
Actually,
Sky.
it even included the,
Scotty Insurance.
yeah.
No, that's insurance.
So that's a
building.
one story,
right,
that's a
right.
one story. So
what's-
it wouldn't be
let's
able to,
Put it a
so,
different way, what's left out. So you go across the street, there is,
and
It's all
it's,
historical. He purposely went around all the historical buildings for the PUDs.
right,
That's intentional.
right,
Well, because a PUD really involves demolition,
right.
full-on demolition of a site.
right, that no one's, and this is, this question, this answer, unless you feel that this will promote demolition, that.
Well, I do, and, yeah, I do, actually.
Changing it from 2.5 to anything higher. Yeah.
It's just, there's gonna be a push, and that's.
I would
and
agree
then-
there will, I would agree there's be a push development wise. I don't know if you could
It's still by
specifically
special
tie it,
permit.
yeah, specifically tie it to increased demolition. But certainly more, I mean, more,
So what'll happen is the houses on Thompson Street will get more and more run down, and then they're gonna come in and say it's falling down, because that's what happens with old houses, especially the frame ones. And then all of a sudden, the planning board will be different members from who's here, and it's going to be, oh, well, it's pretty run down.
but look how small these lots are. What can they really do? Even if, I mean, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're, I
I've seen
understand.
40Bs proposed in Brookline for single-family house lots that are like pencil skyscrapers in Manhattan. Don't underestimate.
That, I mean, okay, so so this is a potential 40B site? I don't think so.
No, I didn't say
Yeah,
that.
I know,
You
but-
said, what can you do? I'm saying you
I
can
don't
do all
see
that.
a four-story, much of anything.
No,
Maybe in 20 years, maybe there'll be a four-story something there, 30 years. I
We have
have no
we have
idea.
I
we have a
didn't say
height
4.
restriction on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't say any of that.
Well-
You said, what can they do? I just said they'll, but
Well,
what
I'm
can
just,
they do?
because if you look at the
Well,
lot
they-
size, they're small.
Those, the frame houses and the historic buildings are always the most vulnerable. The big, excuse my language, ugly brick boxy things, and I don't want to name too many names, but we know where they are, they're going to stick around. And you think, well, why is that still here? It's because it's just volume, square footage, and maybe masonry. So, but the historic ones are the ones that sorry, I've been around for 30-some years. I know how it works.
Yeah,
That's
well, I mean,
exactly what
you know,
happens.
because I think it would be good, for example, if we can identify, I mean, there might be some areas down here and that I can think of that, you know, if you might be able to put maybe one more story on, and it wouldn't hurt a thing.
Well, I
You
guess,
know, and I'm not referring to any of those that are historically significant, by the way.
so the question before the board tonight, I think, is does the board want to put in, to change the FAR to a value which would permit adding additional stories on the buildings in the core, with the caveat that there are very strong protections in the zoning which make it, give the board, you know, essentially a veto power over development that we don't think is appropriate. And so that's really it. I know we've gone back and forth, there are some
There
very.
also were questions about how much, you know, what's
Yes,
the
well-
FAR.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
but with
Will
the,
I don't
the key
disagree.
question, regardless of what the size of the FAR is that we have some very strong opinions on the board. We have not come to a unanimity about this issue. Raising the FAR to allow putting stories on buildings which are not now able to, which are now prevented from doing so, is the fundamental question for the board. Does the board think there are enough protections in the CBD zoning regs to allow raising the FAR, but still denying construction on buildings that we think it's inappropriate?
Heather.
And so, why don't we spend, okay, Heather.
I thought we were also at the last meeting talking about a number slightly lower than 3.0. I thought we were floating like 2.75. Was there gonna be more research from Dennis? or
Right, I
you
wanted
or-
more.
So- So so that's what this spreadsheet is.
So do you have a recommendation on what the new number should be?
I think it should be two, if we're going to, if the board would be, entertain something, it seems like 3.0 is too much and it
Yeah.
should be 275.
Right, okay, so I'm surprised it still says 3.0, because I thought we were talking about a lower.
And then.
Oh, no, that's just I just didn't even change anything there at all. I just highlighted the whole
Okay.
thing. I haven't
So-
touched that.
And so
Yeah.
also we had Dennis come in and describe how the best way, if you're really going to even contemplate putting extra stories on historic buildings, that you want to start sketching them out, and you want to have regs that might include a requirement that you actually have an in the field, you know, I gather it's like yellow caution tape or a full-blown drawing to drawings that are done with photographs that actually
Yeah.
block. So this would, if you're actually doing this, you don't just stick the a new FAR in there and
Here,
walk away
so
from it.
That's
so
not a
hold on
requirement.
hold on a sec. I'm just gonna bring everyone back, because Maureen brings up a good point. We should find out what's already on the regs right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So guidelines for new construction is what we have in our rules and regs governing 7.3. So obviously anything, we are the special permit granting authority for this. This board would be the ones implementing any type of special, or sorry, granting any special permit. We would be obviously using these guidelines in front of us. So it's basically whether or not we believe that the guidelines that currently exist for new construction are strong enough to be enforceable for a special permit. I think in general, anything that's in here is clearly fair game to deny a special permit. That's the point of it.
I know, and I think that was.
So,
that was
but
the
I
whole
would even
point
go
behind
back
keeping the
to
permit
what
grant-
was the
making-
general
Wait, wait.
vision.
I'm gonna
I would,
take-
yeah, I would, why don't we let Brian get to his point, because I really want us to stop going around in circles. So why don't we look at the guidelines?
I'm saying what's going to be a potentially appropriate related to, scale, and which is
Go
what
ahead,
we're talking
fine.
about, so.
Let's just concentrate on this. I mean, we have to come to a decision on this, and so let's work through this.
Height and bulk of buildings should be configured to minimize their visual dominance above downtown's traditional 3 to 4 stories. The extent of cast shadows and undesirable alterations of air currents affecting the public street and open space system bordering neighborhoods and adjacent new or planned development. That doesn't even seem like a sentence to the last part, but
We should have.
I
things
kind of
that
understand
make
what's going
sense.
on with that.
This-
Modern and traditional, the spirit successfully conveyed in a modern expression.
Here, it says setback.
Yep,
Upper
made
floor
it.
setback into, for the
Sorry,
addition, right there, mitigate height, incorporating sloped roofs, upper floor setback.
Yeah,
so
it says
every
roof.
effort should be undertaken to harmonize with
Yeah.
and not overwhelm historic structures.
But he's
mitigate
specifically
height
talking about adding to historically significant buildings.
into
Yeah.
the newer building.
I should say we are, because we, in the
And
end.
it actually says that right in the end of the
So,
first sentence.
so basically what a 2.75 does is would allow for a building to be completely covered with 2 stories, and that third story, the front quarter, or it would be a quarter of the roof would be open to the sky, and then the third floor would be behind it.
And yet it says sloped roofs, and yet everyone I've seen has not been a sloped roof.
It
And
says
I'm talking-
/ upper floor setback. It shows both ways. Mitigate the height by either, I'm guessing he's saying, incorporating sloped roofs or, / upper floor setbacks
So
into the
I would
newer
say
building.
even there, that we were talking when he was here, John Clemson was here, various people have described how when they put third stories on, or stories on, and I'm talking about the historic buildings, that this kind of, but is it even so it's not creating some kind of new thing on top of the coherent, the
Yeah.
key word is actually integrity, the integrity of the historic
Yeah.
building.
Agreed.
And so you would want additional language that would describe how you would actually, and Dennis was describing it too, actually have to have mock-ups, and that's not in there, it's not required. And if it's not required, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's a
And
good-
the
that's a good
pictures they
point,
draw
Lauren.
when they,
We can require that,
I mean,
because
Well,
yeah,
we
so,
need
so
more
this, so
language.
there's a whole,
It's not
so
there.
this whole section here talks, so first of all, elements of form, 3.5, this is what we would write, this is what it's about.
Right.
I mean, it's already done, it's talking about height and there are guidelines. It's talking about scale and the proportion of elements such as dormers, cornices, materials,
And you know what?
projecting bay window.
All of that
Excuse me,
sort of
I'll
thing.
just finish what's going with here, with the scale proportionate elements. Then it even talks about massing. So it talks about regardless of any preconceived development configuration for any particular use, new development is expected to reinforce the, so there's all this great language that we paid for.
And guess what? We've got great language in the zoning bylaw, and it's going over to the ZBA, and I've just been reading these.
I am not the
But-
ZBA.
I don't have
No,
control.
but they-
We are actually the
I
permit
don't-
granting authority for this
I
part of
don't
town.
buy it. Like, we're not all gonna be here in a few years. I don't buy it.
We cannot restrain the next board after.
The one restraint is the FAR, so.
Okay.
The dimensions are restrained.
But it doesn't
After
allow- it
that,
doesn't allow for a
The guidelines
lot
are
of-
very
so-
soft. I want to correct one thing you said, which was that we have very strong guidelines. These actually are very weak
I was
guidelines.
talking about the bylaws, actually. We have strong
Bylaws
bylaws.
are not that strong.
I think that that is a matter of opinion. And so unfortunately,
mine.
what, I understand that, but what I'm hearing that this board is doing is we are all essentially providing the same opinion. I don't know that we've
Well,
changed
the one
minds.
thing I want to remind the board, we did bring Dennis in just the last meeting, and he had a lot more ideas about what we would want to be doing if we were to go forward.
Yes, and I don't see any, I'm losing words tonight, my apologies. I don't see that that is contradictory with changing the FAR. What I heard Dennis say was that these buildings are capable of taking it if they had the appropriate design and the sensitivity to the existing structure, and that he thought it was fine to go ahead with that as long as we managed it correctly.
Well,
That's what I heard.
Managing means you don't put the cart before the horse.
I don't think that the cart is going before the horse.
The FAR before town meeting, before you've actually drawn up and actually understand how you're going to.
Well, see, I think that there are different opinions at this table as to whether or not these guidelines and the bylaws are so weak that increasing the FBR is going to lead to disasters downtown.
Well,
I don't believe that to be the case. And you believe it to be the case, so there's two. Betsy, you want to chime in on this?
yes, please. I mean, it strikes me that, I think to the greatest extent that we have the illustrations, that we have illustrative materials to say, this is what's okay, and that's what's not okay, I think that would add a lot. You know, because I think there are some spots where, yeah, it could work in certain spots, but not in others. And I think that, I think we all really value the downtown. I mean, we know from multiple surveys that we have had amongst the townsfolk in general, that they also really like the downtown and don't really want to see it significantly change. So I think it is up to us in terms of being the proposing organization for any changes in the bylaw, and also within this area as being the special permit granting authority, to, I think, just be cognizant of that. And I think as long as what we are proposing sort of adheres to those sort of guidelines for ourselves in our work, I think we'll succeed.
I want to throw out a
Wait,
different.
One second, please. Either Heather, do you want to say something?
I feel like we've talked about this enough. I'm ready to vote if we lower the number down.
Okay, Heather?
I concur. I mean, I did the studies myself with the Historical Commission. We walked around, we did sketches of those historical buildings, we talked about it. I went back through, I have the emails, I talked about it. It's going by special permit. We can deny it if it doesn't meet the character of the surrounding buildings, if it doesn't meet the neighborhood's character. And then there's so much language in there that supports us but at the same time, the development to promote the growth in downtown, and we're hindering an area, and that was not the intention of the CBD. It was to create more growth into the downtown versus other areas I've talked this to death, I've gone through this for years, and I feel that it's ready to go. But with
Just
that.
for the E-score?
Just for the E-score to 2.75. With that, though, I do think Maureen makes a good point that we should have a hearing on our regulations and make an addition to that when additions are being put on, that we do mock-ups, like they do in Boston.
Yes.
I would like to make one point.
Mm-hmm.
The planning board is in control of the regulations and can change them anytime they want.
Mhm.
So as far as I'm concerned, these regulations don't have the force of law because the next planning board can decide to take out those things. So I don't feel, while it is important that these guidelines are there, the real question is, are the zoning bylaws strong enough to support the restrictions that we want to have on development? These things are nice, but they're not what actually limits development. So I think when we come to a vote on this, and I think I'm going to ask whether the board is ready to take a vote, that's the important thing, is that the guidelines don't matter. It's the zoning bylaws. Are they,
So it's this.
the guidelines can be changed by any
Guidelines can
board.
be changed, just like town meeting can be, 7.3 can be deleted at any time.
Right, it's
So
just
are
the,
you saying that we only vote on this when we're ready to add new zoning language? that
no,
is
what I'm just
strong?
saying is that if we vote to go forward and increase the FAR, that we have to understand, that I mean, it's much harder to change the zoning
That's right,
bylaws than it
that's
is to change the regulations.
That's right. They're
Because
very
these
different
regulations
animals.
just require us to go through
Well,
a simple
It
vote.
sounds like you're saying we strengthen the zoning at the same time.
My question, no, what I'm saying
Two
is,
things, a zoning thing and a
Do-
subdivision, and a rules and regs for
Yeah.
7.3.
do you believe if you vote to increase the FAR tonight, or you want to go forward with the increase in the
To the
FAR,
town meeting.
then you have to believe that the bylaws are strong enough to support the board when it decides to say, to deny a permit. Because that's really what is limiting, that's what's giving the board the power.
And that's a legal question, frankly.
Well, it's also a question of
If y'all
opinion on this
understand it.
board, is, does this, if, for instance, I'll give it, my personal opinion is, I believe the bylaws give us sufficient authority,
Oh, the authority is there.
and so I believe the bylaws are sufficient to protect the buildings we want protected and to ensure that development is done appropriately.
So I'm going to go back, because I want to say how this board had, and this was just a recommendation, but it was to the ZBA, on a historic resource, a National Register listed house on Everett Avenue. It had a pushing, a garage, there was a two-car garage that was pushing way out toward the street, and a substantial alteration to the main facade. And this was a National Register, Robert Coit Designs, super important house. And yet, in the end, the planning board's recommendation was to let this whole porch go across the whole house with the forward-fronting garage. So I don't care what board it is. In the end, the boards usually, and this is just all boards, I'm sorry, I've been around so long, it's just the boards usually move these things forward. Boards usually don't deny. So the tightest control, and back to the beginning of the whole document that Brian has, whether it's in the town's zoning bylaw, I didn't bring either one in tonight, or the CBD regs, one of the objectives has been to protect the historic resources in the town center. And if this FAR moves forward, then, and were to go forward to and be passed by the town meeting, we'd basically be incentivizing these builders to be coming in and property owners in the CBD to be popping on or demolishing these extra stories. And in my view, this is not a matter of just the straight zoning. The straight zoning just keeps things tight. But after that, the next question is, which Diab raises, is how will boards in the future, and maybe even this board, vote? And I believe that will be those of us who want to see the protection of the historic resources will see that they're going to go every time. There will be some tweaking, and then it'll move forward. So it's really opening up floodgates by opening up this FAR to a greater scale. So that's the end of the control.
So I would like to get us to the point where we're going to consider a vote, whether we should move forward with the vote. Does anyone want to make any other points in support of increasing the FAR or not going forward?
A lot of the notes that Brian noted that are in here and that you pulled up are actually in the zoning bylaw, like the elements of form is talking about setbacks, is talking about how the scale of the buildings have to be consistent with the historical buildings, no monolithic appearance, which if they did the third story on,
That would clearly be.
that would clearly be monolithic.
Right.
So there, and when we were with with Dennis, and I went through, the only thing I referenced was the zoning. I didn't reference any of this in terms of how I felt that the language inside the zoning supported the historical buildings. And
So
the
it's-
silhouette, I mean, it's very,
It's nearly, actually, I didn't really, it's not all of it,
it's a lot of it.
but it's nearly all of well, the one that we were focusing on in the design, in the rules and regs for 7.3 were the elements of form that talked about it there, and was basically like, if this is enforceable or not. It is,
So-
but it's,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all,
It's-
I want to make it sure I'm clear. The regs are fine, the standards are fine. The reality is, though, the number is the one thing that actually keeps the lid on it. And once you raise the number, the developers and the property owners will be in here wanting to increase the size.
They
We
still
want that
have
for
that.
some of them.
For some, we do, but we've got a whole North Main Street, there's only one building on all of North Main Street that we even are trying to hold on to. The rest of North Main Street can go kaboom. And we've got a very large area, even in this East Core, and we've got another area, you can bring up the zoning, the color-coded map. More than two-thirds can be redeveloped, so no question, we're interested in the redevelopment. But the question is, how do we handle the portions of the center that are so sensitive? And yeah, the language is fine, but will the boards actually hang on? And my view is, after so many years of experience, the boards that grant the permits usually tweak it a bit and end up sort of looking at it and going, eh, and then they approve it. And that's history. So it's
Well-
sad, but so are we really opening up the Pandora's box for
Okay.
those buildings?
So I would like someone to make a motion, since I can't.
I will make a motion that we raise the FAR to 2.75 for the East Core. So 1.5 by right, up to 2.75 with special permit for the East Core,
I'm
with
sorry.
special permit.
Yeah, let me, before we go into this, I should have said one procedural thing. I think it's important we understand, we decide how a vote on this should go forward. So for instance, if there's a 5-0 vote, it's obvious. If there's a 4-1 vote, I believe it's obvious. If there's a 3-2 vote, I believe that we should probably consider that as a very divided board, and we should, I mean, would the board be comfortable going forward to town meeting if we voted 3-2 in favor of increasing the FAR? Or does the board want to say we should have a 4-1 vote, a stronger vote? A 3-2 vote essentially means that,
That's pretty much.
Well,
what the majority of
again,
Yeah.
I can't remember when this board in a split vote at all has gone forward.
I want to make,
Well,
I
no,
want
but,
to, I understand.
You're trying to set it
but I
up
also-
like if I'm the
I
only
understand,
opposed,
and that's
that
why
you guys will go off and
I believe that.
speak against it.
I understand, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is that if we require unanimity of this board, that means that one person has veto power. And that means that if we're concerned about overdevelopment in town, then any person on the board who wants lots of development can veto anything. If we're so a one-person veto, I think, is dangerous because it means this board can be deadlocked.
Excuse me, that's offensive.
I'm sorry?
That's offensive.
I'm not directing it as you.
You're okay.
No,
Offensive.
as I pointed out, I apologize if you took it offensively, but what I'm
We are
saying,
each a voting member of the board. Please don't call that dangerous.
no, that's not my point. My point is, do we want this board in the future with a different, anytime I look at a
Different
board,
composition, yeah.
I think the board should be able to move forward with a majority. And I apologize if you think I'm criticizing you, I'm not. What I'm saying is that if any member on this board, and I'm not saying you, if any member on this board wants to hold up anything and say, I'm not going to vote for this, and again, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general. This is like being at the UN. A single vote in the UN can prevent anything from happening. And if we end up having a person on this board who is determined to be an obstacle, then requiring a unanimous vote on things like this, I don't consider you an obstacle at all, Maureen. I want to make that very clear. But I am concerned that we will have a deadlocked board if we require to have a 5-0 vote to
Let me try
move
a
forward.
different response. we have a lot of unanimity, and I'd really like to get on to, we've got a couple other articles, including rezoning the
Yes.
GBD 2 and 3. There's a lot of consensus, and one of the roles of government is finding consensus to move forward in any area of
But
government.
consensus does
And
not
there's
require
always-
unanimity.
Not always, but in a planning board in Massachusetts, where you're going into town meeting and asking for the support of town meeting in something as serious
By-
as changing
by a two-
land.
By a two-thirds vote.
By
I-
a two-thirds vote, maybe there's a reason why pulling together as a planning board and figuring out what the common interests are is in the interest of the planning board. No, it's not required, but there might be some real substantial concerns here, and I think I've been raising them, so.
I don't disagree with your I don't think anyone on this board says your concerns aren't real. I want to make that true, a point. Yes,
Has the
Heather.
planning board in the past gone to town meeting with something that was not unanimous?
Not in my memory, ever.
I mean, I think that's an important point, but I also,
I don't know the history of that dynamic.
I do not know the history of that.
Technically,
If
yes.
it's not
they're-
100, it's 99 out of 100. I mean, I would-
Technically, yes, because everything, like when they go through zoning, is yes or no for certain things, and it's not always unanimous for what. So when they did the CBD zoning, it was not unanimous on every element that was put in it, but overall, it was voted unanimous to go to town meeting.
Correct.
to be
So
put on the
different
warrant, to be put
components.
on the warrant.
To be put on the
Is the
warrant.
term, yeah.
I mean, I completely agree that it would be better if we were always unanimous, but to actually make that a required mandate on this board?
Required.
Well, no, but if we're
Asking the
going to.
judgment of the group, do we
Well,
feel that we've got?
that's what
enough?
I'm bringing forward is is this group comfortable going forward with a non-unanimous vote on this? And if it is comfortable, what level of consensus is required? That's the question I'm posing to this board before we go and vote on this. That's the reason I asked Heather to stop, so that we could consider the fact. And my point of view is that I think that, in my point of view, a 4-1 vote is permissible to go forward and present this to town meeting. If someone else wants to
Of course
comment
it's
on that?
permissible. It's just
It's what we want to do.
what's the.
That's what I mean, permissible by this board.
How does the board feel that you've got a whole, like, master plan survey that's just gone out, and how much people really care about this center business district and the historic character of the business district.
We've
And
gone
when
over
we-
those items,
But
Maureen.
when,
Can we
does
please
this board
focus?
really want to go in when somebody else is going to be, and
That's-
I didn't know this
Yes,
was
I wanna
coming up
go
at
in.
9:30
Okay,
at
so
night.
I
if you want to have some
think, can we,
people here,
we need
here.
to, we really need to focus on procedural matters right now. Okay, and I think the next step forward, because we have to make a decision on this FAR tonight, because we've been dragging it on for 3 months.
Well, I'd love to do GBD 2 and 3.
Yes, but we
and we're not
never
gonna-
get to GBD 2 and 3 because we are spending time on the FAR.
Right, so why don't we shift? That's been
No,
my
because
point.
we have to get done with the FAR.
Not
So,
necessarily, we could
okay,
move on
I-
and be doing something productive rather than something where there's quite a bit of
I'm sorry,
dissent.
I disagree that this is not productive. I think we need to make a decision. So, is the board comfortable moving forward with a 4-1 vote?
Betsy, what are your thoughts on that? May I ask you?
Well, it's always a majority vote.
I feel when Charles,
But I also agree, if you're talking about 3-2, essentially that will get read, as being a split
Oh,
vote.
even
So,
when it's
no question.
4-1,
Okay,
the person can, and
When-
often does speak if you're going to talk about.
I have no problem with that.
when this passed, Charles, before the vote happened, Charles promised town meeting that the planning board would keep looking at this. If issues came up, we would bring it back to town meeting for their consideration and for them to know about. This is an issue that we came into. Now, some people understood what that meant, some didn't at the time in terms of the FAR inconsistencies with the height. Most people focused on the height. And I think it's an issue. I think it needs to be brought to town meeting, and they should be the ones that get to decide it. I mean, we're bringing a recommendation, and I have no problem bringing a recommendation to town meeting. That's a 4-1 vote to recommend that we bring it to town meeting for their consideration. They're the ones who get to make the decision in the end. I have no problem bringing it to town meeting and telling them what we came into, what the issues are, and go from there and see what they choose. It's really their choice. It's not really ours. And holding it back because doesn't a unanimous vote on the planning board and agreement on it is not fair to town meeting either.
Well,
Okay.
it's not that it's unfair, it's also an aspect
When-
of whether
let's-
town
we-
meeting, how town meeting perceives the planning
Right,
board.
but that's a separate, yeah.
performance.
Yeah, so we've heard from Betsy, Maureen, you've made your opinion on this clear. Heather, you've made your opinion. Other Heather, how do you feel about a 4-1 versus a 3-2?
I think that's fine.
A 4-1 is fine? Okay, so I think we've got everyone, a 4-1 seems to be acceptable for most people, for the majority of people on the board. Do we feel like we need to take an official vote on that? I'm fine with taking an official vote on that. If not, then let's move forward with the motion that Heather started working on.
I make a motion to change the FAR from 2.5 to 2.75 with special permit in the East Core for Article 2 town meeting consideration.
The zoning bylaws, the zoning bylaws 7.3.12.1, number
Number
2.
2. To change it to the maximum floor area ratio is 1.5 by right up to 2.75 with special permit.
Okay, is there a second?
Actually, I think, let me see now, the existing language is, let's see now.
Is 2.5 striked out. It
That's
says
what I thought.
it says 3.0 because I just highlighted the whole thing, it wasn't finished.
Got it, because the existing is 2.5.
Correct.
Right, so just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed?
Me.
Okay, so we have a 4-1 vote with Maureen in dissension
For Article 6.
for Article 6 to put that on. Okay.
Just making a note that in our materials, I think pictures and, illustrative materials, I think will be important.
I agree that we should,
Where will they go?
The difference, well, just the difference.
Where?
they'll go in the guidelines,
It would be, what would,
the regulations.
I was thinking of, just.
For town meeting?
Yeah, for presentation purposes.
Well, that's like meaningless.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Well, let's,
I don't think it's meaningless at all.
So that people know what we're talking about.
That's right.
So with the next one, we're having a meeting with
We're
the
ha-
neighbors.
We're having a meeting
Discuss
with.
this.
Yes. So these are all basically every parcel in the GBD 2 and 3, and there's a couple in the RG, and then there are a couple there's one in the RDC, which is a very random,
yeah,
extremely random one. So there's really just to talk extremely briefly, there's really 2 reasons why we're talking about this. One is because there's parcels that are split between residential and general business district 2 or 3. Effectively, those are residential parcels anyway, because more than 80% of them is not, if a parcel is split between 2 different zoning districts, the one that's more restrictive is the one that carries. So in this case, it's the RG, unless 80% of the parcel is part of the business district. So this is cleaning up a lot of parcels that, to basically take away confusion, because the parcels are residential anyway, or they're general business district anyway. The point is that it's going by the parcel rather than this 150-foot line. That's one reason. The other reason is that there are certain commercial uses that could potentially bleed into the residential zone, parcel by parcel, in a like taking ownership. But the issue that already I would put this out, that I put this out today to a larger group, talking about the meeting that's happening on September 11th. And some of the initial comments are already saying that, where did this actually come from in terms of the, and I wasn't entirely sure. It's in terms like there wasn't a ton of residents, meaning talking to me specifically, so I didn't have any like firsthand stories. Like people wanted to really know the genesis of this.
So it came from all different avenues. One's a triangle master plan. The second one is the actual new construction that's happening on Main.
But I know, the Triangle
is
Master
essential.
Plan, I think, was more about expanding the general business district. I mean, it talked about.
It's to address it.
Yeah, it's to address it, but I don't know, yeah, I mean, yeah.
The genesis in part was me, because I live in that area, and the fact that there has been a development on Richardson, where they have actually built a 3-story building.
Yeah.
It's a full 3 stories, which is on one of these
On the
affected
corners,
lots.
Yeah.
And
That's residential.
it's a 3-story residential building built on the lot which we would consider to be part of the neighborhood. It's not on Main Street, it's the one lot off of Main Street.
Ah.
And it is a full 3-story building.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And so the concern is knowing how development is going in that area and knowing that we are hoping that Main Street does get some revival of development. We don't want, my concern was that we would start seeing commercial development in the neighborhoods. Beyond the Main
anything
Street.
directly on Main Street.
Well, and there's two other
right.
properties where that was gonna happen too, right?
There are
The
currently,
Hardware and then Bagel Land.
right, but those showed up after, I mean, this discussion
But
started.
I mean, it's a pattern of a house
It's a pattern.
behind that
Yeah.
would be absorbed.
And there is an example already in one street where there is an existing business which occupies the parcel on Main Street and the one back. It's a plumbing business. And as you drive into that neighborhood, it's really obvious that there's this non-residential use which is going down the street. So that would be the genesis of this. I don't know that we've had an awful lot of residents coming to us and asking for this, but
That was a direct question.
Yes.
To me. Was-
yes, where's it coming from?
No, well, also, are many people talking about this?
I think
Yeah.
most people don't recognize that that's actually how it's zoned,
I think you're right.
that it can
You're
happen.
right about that.
The only reason that I understood that was how it's zoned is because when they put up that building on Richardson, I said, how in the heck can they be putting up a 3-story building? And that's when I went and I looked at the GBD.
Because they took one of the other back parcels, didn't they, to do that?
Yeah, it's right, it's the one, it's,
Zoned?
yeah.
So Brian did, oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, just this week too alone, there's been a lot of chatter about that 3-story building going in, how oversized it is and how it's on top of the neighborhood and.
Yeah, so that
But in
would
front-
be,
On
It
social
fr-
media, there's,
It fronts on Main Street?
it fronts, but they took a back lot.
Right, right.
And then, so now it's really deep. It's the one that they've been piling forever and shaking my house.
Yeah, so it's going
Oh, the
right,
one there in the middle of building, that one?
It's directly across from, well, you have Bellino Park, which is right next to,
It's where Scruples used to be.
yeah,
yeah. Wow, you can feel
The
it
dairy
over on
barn.
your side?
yeah.
Dairy Barn's still there, but.
They're hitting the bedrock that we all live on North Main.
I guess I'm not home
Well, not
when you do
anymore,
it.
they should be done by now. They were hitting my bedrock.
So this has been a really complicated map to actually figure out where to put things, just so
That
you
is
know.
very
This
true.
wasn't,
Yeah, so that was my question, is did you go to each of these? Is that where this came from?
No, this was all mapping.
it's all on the map.
Oh, okay.
This is all
It's
mapping
not
basically
like
what's up-
checking each building to
No,
see
it's
what's
it's
there.
how it's actually zoned. The way it was zoned, it was weird because it was mostly 150 feet off of Main Street. It was just a swath of GBD 2 and 3. However, if you look at this, there are many cases where it's probably like 280 or 300 feet off on the north
I
side
mean,
towards
to
it.
check, like to check what you would propose there. Is
Oh,
it
we-
actually a residential building that's?
That-
Oh,
that
yes,
part of
that
it?
was, that was based
That
on
was-
my knowledge of the neighborhood.
And
looking
Google
at-
Earth. I mean, sorry, Street View,
Just
Street
wanted to-
Street
someone
View.
double check this.
Yes, no,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was basically Street View on all the properties.
Okay,
Yeah, so it
So-
was,
Yeah.
in terms of to figure out what was actually on the ground. The whole point that that this is trying to do is to zone for what has been there forever and that will most likely be there forever as well. There is a really weird, the only really strange one is the first one, this RDC. So it's almost all RDC, which is very rare in town. You probably don't even know what color it is because it's so rare. So it's RDC, it's 15,000 square foot lot. We never see them. There's very few parcels. It's just stuck there for no reason. So it's a residential lot, but it's a doctor's and a dentist, I
There's
believe.
no residences
There
on it.
hasn't been any residential, and there never has
Insurance
really,
company, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, well, why is that zone that way? It should just be part of all of it should be part of the GBD three.
Yeah, it's, as you
For a number of
go, as you
reasons.
go down Swanton Street, if you make a right, like you're going to the transfer station, on your left, you'll see Andrea's Pizza, and then as you cross over the X railway line, there's a dentist's office, and then an insurance office, and that's it. That's what that zone is. It's just insanely bizarre. There are two commercial properties on an RDC lot, so everywhere you see we're in proposed zoning where it's actually still a GBD, those are existing uses.
I would like to wait until we hear on the 16th what the neighbors have to say and what that, and I know that, like we received,
You can't really
you
guess.
received the email from Mr. Conti today, and
Yeah.
and I saw that, but what I really, yes, he's precinct 2, but I actually really want to hear from the direct abutters that are impacted by this and hear what they would like to say. And the owners too. And before we move forward with any votes.
Yeah, so we thought it was mostly 8 and 1, but it's not 1 at all. It's 8 and 2.
Yeah,
He's 2 though,
Precincts.
right?
yeah.
But in terms of the precincts, that in
Oh,
our heads,
okay.
we'd always kept saying, oh, it's 8 and probably a little bit of 1, but it's 8 and a little bit of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the biggest change in Mr. Conti's letter, he pointed out that it looks like boundaries had moved quite a bit, and that was because of this 80% rule. We just wanted, if a lot was more than 80% residential, then we thought the entire lot should be residential.
Right.
And so that's why the boundaries seem to have changed, but it actually hasn't changed the underlying zoning, because the zoning,
It's not a real,
It's not clear on the
it's to
map.
make it more clear. It's not to change anything.
yeah, because those could not have been developed anyway because of where the boundary was drawn across the property.
But if a property owner who had 100% commercial bought one of those lots, and joined them as one lot, it then turns over to commercial, correct?
No, I don't think.
can't do that?
I don't believe you can, no, because it is effectively residential.
The lot.
The lot itself is governed, and we could ask town council, but I'm pretty sure it's effectively residential, so you can't,
Merge it with a commercial
you
lot.
can't creep,
Yeah, you can't just, you would have to get it rezoned.
yeah. So, and one of the questions we had is
That would have
this
to go-
done by meets and bounds, or is it done by parcel ID? And we went back and forth on
Has to
that.
be, period, has to be parcel
It has
ID,
to be parcel
period.
ID.
There's no other, we are not spending tens of
That's
thousands
fine.
of dollars doing
Yeah.
that.
And can you tell me how many of these are actually, are not impacted by that percentage? And that are just being switched because they currently are a house on it? Can
That's a
you,
good-
can you add that column in?
Sure, so which ones would actually
Which ones are,
move from a residential, or
No.
from a business to a residential?
It's going from you're asking what goes from mostly a GBD 3
Mm-hmm.
to an RG? Nothing.
nothing?
No.
So all these that have RGs currently are,
Either 50% or more RG, which would
Or-
make it RG anyway.
or it currently is being used as an RG for
Yes.
living
Yes.
purposes? Okay.
I believe, we should double check that.
Just double check that, 'cause
That, I mean, we can double check that, but the only way we determined a proposed zoning was based upon what was it was two things: what was on the ground and where does the zone fall? Like if something that was 80% GBD, but there's a house on it, that's what you're asking about. I don't
Yes.
think that exists, but I would.
That's what we need to check.
Yeah,
That's what
I
Mr.
don't think-
Conti's
I don't
concern
think-
was.
Let's double check that.
I think anytime that happened, the point was like, well, there's a commercial building there, so there should continue to be a commercial building.
Let's,
But
let's
it can
double
be
check
definitely
that.
double check.
Absolutely.
So all we really need,
The question before the board is this a down zone for certain property owners? I don't think so,
That we need to confirm.
but we
that.
need
need to
to,
confirm
sure,
that.
and that's what this is about.
Okay.
yeah, so let's just put another column and see whether or not.
Is it a down zone?
Is it, well, is it
Well,
a-
no, that is the
is it a
term. It's
chain?
either an up zone or a down zone. I mean, it would be.
well,
Meaning that going from GBD to RG, it's more
something
restrictive,
more
it's called a
restrictive.
down zone. That's
Does it matter that they were RG before they went into GBD?
that's a good
3?
question too, is
They were.
originally they were RG prior to the rezoning in when was it? It was the
2000,
80s?
I was there.
2000? So we would be restoring them to the zoning they had.
Maybe that would be a good column to have for the meeting. just
But
to
it's
show-
probably wouldn't line up it's not gonna line up exactly the same.
I don't know. But
Well-
most,
But would that be helpful, like previous zoning? and
Yeah,
then
why don't we add that
we
in
would
there?
have
We'll get the
RG.
previous zoning. We'll have to dig out the old maps.
That's easy, no, that's easy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on
So
the
you said that
wall.
happened,
Just
you said that
information,
vote
and
was
it's
in
good stuff to
2000.
have for the 16th too, because
Yeah. Right.
the property owners are gonna
11th.
wanna know.
by the
11.
way, I was opposed to that at the time, but it was not something, I was brand new on the board, there was not much I could say. And yet, the nasty stuff that you're seeing, I could envision. And that's the same thing that I'm seeing for what's going forward if we were to change the FAR. Because it's the nasty stuff that you've got to anticipate.
It's a world of politics.
It's understanding what you're actually going to get.
Okay, so I think that's it for
And,
the,
yeah, we're not there for 8 yet,
Not there for 8 yet.
for 8, there's a surveyor that's gonna go out there to figure out, what those, parcel, because there's those, an A&R would have to be created in order to do the land swap. So before we can change these specific parcels over from SCI to RDB 10, those actually do need to be surveyed, so they're in the middle of that.
Okay, so let us know.
yeah, so hopefully we will see something soon.
I'm hoping soon, but I don't know.
Okay, well, it's out of your hands on that one. So that's pretty much it. The action items, we should really do the action items so we can kick Brian out. And the action items we have, as far as I know, are to discuss with Art, the effect on.
Article 2, if it will make
Article 2.
properties non-conforming.
How we handle nonconformities there. We were going to look at adding a column on Article 7 to indicate which ones were downzoned, and also perhaps a column indicating the zoning that it was prior to being switched to the big change in 2000. Let's just call it that. And I think those are the only
Yep.
actions on that one. And then, if I recall, we have to close this meeting? And then we do a roll call?
We just vote to go into.
We need to
Okay,
vote to
We just
go.
need to
Just
go
vote.
into.
Executive
Executive
And
session.
notify if we're gonna come back into,
Right, so,
regular afterwards.
thank you, WinCam, for sticking with us this
Well,
long. I know that we were planning on
Well, you
getting
take
in
the
earlier.
vote first and then excuse them.
Yeah, no, I just, the
Matter of form.
WinCam operator thought he could go at 9:10, so.
Oh.
So I appreciate staying around. So, do we have I guess, I'm sorry, my brain's not working. Someone have to make a motion for
I
this?
make a motion to go into executive session and not return into open
Yeah,
meeting.
for purposes of personnel.
And
Yep.
do we have a
Review
second?
board.
Okay, we have a second. And let's go around the table. Betsy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Heather Hennan, aye. Dee Jerry says aye.
Aye.
Maureen says aye. Okay, so